Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We got a great show coming at you. Tyler Kiwala is here. We're going to talk about everything from UFOs, ETs, ET contact, his own life experiences will be taken. We're going to have a great show tonight. Robin Haynes will join us in hour number 3. We're going to have a great one. So let's say hello to each and every one of you in the chat room so far. We have Eternity Eternal with the gold medal. Tim Mothman in his goatee with a silver. Fast Hemi taking home a bronze medal tonight. Race fan in 4th. You know he's not liking that. Kitty Caddywhack and Robert the Moth, how are you? David Dorenberg and Bar Madison, thanks for coming on in. Jeffrey Green, been a while. Nice to have you back here as we continue on with our roll call. Road Flare, thank you for joining us. Hello there, Amanda. Kurt W75, how are you? Carrie Tarver, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. Mama Catherine, mwah, I love you, my dear. I hope you enjoy tonight's show and then get a good sleep afterwards, because that's always nice, too. Mel WD40 is here lubing us up for tonight's show, because when you're talking ET contact, you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. So, Mel, thank you for lubing us up for tonight. Scrolling on down, we say hello to Ethanol. Bill Sardellis in the studio is here. In the studio, we'll be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Deb N., welcome to SOR Chat. Yes, it was my birthday last week. Thank you, my dear. And let's see. Who else do we have here? Digger Dog, nice to have you back. Michael Morris, the attorney at large, good to have you. Gory Tiger, thanks for coming on in as we continue on with our roll call. Little Cam on YouTube did 57 push-ups in 12 seconds. His arms are jacked for tonight, just jacked. Millennium, my man, how are you? Thanks for coming on in. Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived, which means we can officially start this show. Scrolling on down, up next we have Fast Hemi. Thank you for coming on in. Pam Harris, how are you? Kurt M. Lakeside Laura is here. Lakeside Laura will be signing autographs after the show as well. It's her first time, so be gentle. Don't get a little pushy in line. But you'll have to line up to the right of the studio if you don't mind. To the right of the studio. Al Garay over on Twitch, 1,500 sit-ups in 3 minutes. His abs are jacked right now. Rock and Rory, nice to see you. Flat 6, nice to have you here. Susan, how are you feeling today? Please let us know as we continue on with our roll call here. Good evening, Creepy Pasta. Good to have you here. Nina Williams, what's happening? Little Timmy James, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Operation Shutdown, thanks for coming on in as we continue on with our roll call. Tracy Winters, thank you for coming on in. And who's next on our list here as we scroll on down? And next we say hello to, well, let's see here. Hippie Deidre on Vancouver Island, wearing her Birkenstocks as we speak. Kitty Caddywhack kicking off the Super Chat tonight. Thank you for the love and support. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you, Kitty, for kicking things off tonight. We greatly appreciate it. I'm Hardcore over on X. Nice to have you listening. Signs of Life, nice to have you back. Chris P., welcome to SOR Chat. As we continue on with our roll call, AJ, Lenda, nice to have you both here. Scrolling on down, well, let's wait on that. Let's get the radio side going. Hello and welcome to the radio and podcast side of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott, and Tyler Kiwala will be our guest tonight as we take a look at what it's like to be taken by aliens and ET contact. We're going to get deep into it. We are on roll call right now on our YouTube side, warming up for tonight, so just sit back, relax, and enjoy here because it'll be very exciting here momentarily. Eternity Eternal, thank you for that amazing super chat. We greatly appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio. Terrence Wills, how are you tonight? I hope you enjoy tonight's show. Walter, JSCO, good to have you both here. We are caught up on the roll call. Reminder, the super chat is open. And, of course, you can shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Why? We do not have ugly swag, people. No ugly swag, so make sure you check it on out. It is that time of the night where I ask each and every one of you to do me a favor. Throw those horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. You can follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We have an amazing show for you tonight. We're going to find out what it's like to be taken by aliens. Tyler Kiwala is here to talk about ET contact. We're going to get to him momentarily. Then in hour number 3, Swamp Dweller will kick things off with another creepy story. Follow that up, Robin Haynes will be here for the cryptid Q&A. Tyler Kiwala is an ET experiencer, independent researcher, and passionate disclosure activist. Most popularly known for his Awakening Community for Journey to the Truth podcast, hosted by himself and fellow disclosure activist Aaron Kuhn. Together, they have created a platform for discussing any and all controversial and eye-opening topics without limitations in an effort to spread awareness to the masses. Tyler's journey began with a levitation experience shortly after his mother's passing in 2010. That ended with intense paralysis and visitation from shadow people. This experience would literally lead to inner Earth beings, Sasquatch, Greys, reptilians, and recruitment attempts into covert military programs. Tyler is currently in the process of retrieving suppressed memories from what he believes are from his involvement with agencies with the shadow government. We're going to get deep into this. This is an interesting topic indeed. Tyler Kiwala, welcome to Spaced Out Radio again. How you doing, my friend?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here. Keep me up late tonight and past my bedtime. I appreciate it. Breaking me out of my comfort zone.
Oh, no problem, my man. No problem. You are like me. And what we have in common, you don't even know this. You are a multiple experiencer, as am I. And when you travel down that road and you kind of get what I like to call fast-tracked on all of the incidents that happen, it's kind of a wild experience. And you know what? Your experience started with your mother passing. My experience started with my mother when I saw the angel of death in her eyes.
Interesting.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it was definitely it wasn't anything I didn't even understand what was happening at first. It was kind of like awakening through adversity, trial by fire type of thing. I just my mother passed away, and it was a very traumatic time in my life. And next thing I know, I'm having all these negative psychic attacks and astral attacks and stuff. And prior to that in my life, I had none of that. So it was all new to me, and I was already traumatized. I was already grieving my mother, and then I had this negative stuff happening in the bedroom at night, which I didn't believe in at the time. I mean, I always believed in this stuff, but it just stayed there. I didn't think it was real. You know what I mean? And then once it started happening to me, uh, I didn't know I didn't even know what to make of my own reality of my life anymore. And I didn't want to tell anybody because, you try to gaslight yourself and tell you it's not happening, right? That's whatever. But um, I was proven wrong. I mean, it was like, it's happening because they were like, yeah, it's not going to stop until you recognize that there's something going on here. Like, you have to find a way to explain the unexplainable. And that's where my journey started. I was just constantly trying to figure out why this was happening, what is happening, what are these entities, what's the bigger picture here. And it led to this whole like great awakening that we hear about. And I don't really have the luxury of disbelief anymore, because once you start living it, then it's a reality. And then it started affecting my 40-hour work week, my job, and everything else. And I couldn't actually properly function and be there 100% because all this crazy stuff was happening to me at night. And I had to make a hard decision to actually quit that job, which was no longer serving my soul. And, my soul was screaming at me to get out of that environment because it was definitely holding me back from this greater mission, which I'm on now by taking that leap of faith and committing to the podcast and just fighting for the truth full time. And that's kind of where I'm at.
It's very difficult to give up everything in your life in order to try and figure out what happened to you. I know this. I mean, I have a radio show because of it too. Okay. I just could not find the answers that I was looking for or satisfied with. Is that the reason why you put together Journey to Truth podcast, just to try and find those answers to comfort what you're going through?
Yeah, so it was more or less like this. Once I started learning about this stuff and listening to podcasts and stuff and understanding that there were others out there going through the same thing, I became like hooked. I was like, oh, like there's other people going through this stuff, and I didn't have anyone to talk to, right? So the internet becomes your best friend, and the people in the chat and everybody in the comment section, like you start communicating with these complete strangers, but they're experiencing something similar, so you're relating. And that led me to a conference. I bought tickets to a conference, and I went with my dad, and we didn't know a single soul that was going to be there. I just had a feeling. I wish I saved a text. I told my dad, I was like, I think this is going to be a life-changing experience if we go. And he's like, I'll leave it up to you. So we bought 2 tickets and went to Loveland, Colorado in 2018 for a UFO conference, a disclosure conference. And that's why I ended up meeting my co-host. And we met there and realized we both lived in the same hometown. And we got back home a couple of weeks later. We met up for lunch, and he just kind of threw out the idea for starting a podcast. It sounded okay to me. And it really was just going to be us just kind of, just shooting the shit. I'm sorry, or I can't cuss. Sorry. Just, it really was just going to be us having conversations about the stuff we were experiencing. And then we decided to start interviewing our friends, and it was just, we never had any expectations whatsoever. And it just eventually turned into something that we didn't even understand what we were creating. And it turned into, we do conferences now, documentaries, webinars. My co-host and I have both written our first books, which my book is called Bleedthrough, Tales from Another Timeline. And that just came out like a month ago. We can get into that. But it's been quite a journey. It's turned into so much more than just a podcast. It's become a lifestyle. And I don't even know how I could go back if I had to, because once you're aware of this stuff, you can't unsee it, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is no turning back. I mean, here's the thing, though. You look at the critics, the skeptics, the debunkers, who are pretty much armchair quarterbacks for the most part on debunking all of this. And I look at this, Tyler. Maybe you'd look at it the same way. People like you and me, we don't automatically go to the woo. We are looking for the sensibility of it all to make sure it wasn't another experience that we weren't ready for. Because you're never prepared for it when it happens. And I guess I look at it like we're the type of people, and when I say we, you, me, every experiencer out there, who's looking for logic in the illogical. And I don't think we ever get enough credit for that. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree actually. And when it first started for me, I didn't have the woo to go to because I didn't believe in it, right? Like, so it's kind of a weird thing. I grew up in these religious families. My mom's side was very Catholic, or Christian. My dad's side was Catholic, and I never kind of, I wasn't, I never resonated with it. It was forced on me. So as soon as I was old enough to not go, I didn't go anymore. And I found some friends that were atheists, and I just felt like this is easier. I don't have to believe in anything. Nothing's being forced on me, and this feels right. That's what I thought, and that was my mindset. It's much easier to live in a world where there's no karma, there's no consequences for your action. We're all here by chance. We're just randomly floating here. Like, that's the belief they want everybody in. So it gives everybody a free pass to be a bad person. And that's where I was at. Like, I just didn't think any of this stuff was real. And it always intrigued me, but I left it there. And then once it started happening to me, then for what do? You try to logically make it make sense. I didn't have these woo concepts to jump to conclusions to. The only thing I had heard of whenever I first experienced like a levitation out of my bed and this whole thing was I had heard of out of body experiences. So I thought maybe that's what was happening, but I wasn't. When I got so far out of my bed, I was like in this tractor beam, whatever that was happening. It was right after my mother passed. I caught myself in the mirror. They had mirrored closet doors, and I saw myself in the mirror, and I looked down in bed, and I wasn't in bed. Like, I was actually in the air. My TV remote was floating next to me. And that's when it panicked, and I started getting like trying to like swim back down into bed, and it was like this whole thing. And I ended up getting um, effectively paralyzed, and something took control of my body and slammed me in the bed, and I can feel a presence on top of me. And I was fighting for my life. I know it now as sleep paralysis, but it was much more severe. And like, we're talking levitation, like I was feeling the weight. It wasn't just like this mild fleeting paralysis. It was actually something very traumatic that brought me to tears once I broke free. And my mother had just passed away. Now this was happening to me, and I was actually so scared of it, I didn't even want to close my eyes again that night. Um, and I stayed awake. I forced myself awake the rest of the night, and then I called off work the next day because I just didn't know what was happening to me. And I kind of suffered in silence for a while. I didn't want to, certainly wouldn't tell my roommates I was living with, because they, weren't into any of this stuff. And I just thought people would think it's ridiculous. And I couldn't not replay it in my head over and over. And then, and then more stuff kept happening after that. And I was experiencing these night terrors and these paralysis and these different forms of levitations, that something else was taking control of my body. Something was happening to me, and I didn't have any terminology, any vocabulary, nothing to make sense of it. So what do? You start looking, and that's what I did. But at first, you do everything you can to rationally explain it. And eventually, you just hit dead end after dead end, and you get frustrated with all these mainstream conclusions I'm like, no, like sleep paralysis isn't just some random thing. Like, all these doctors with these PhDs and all this stuff, they're trying to explain sleep paralysis. I'm like, this is not what I'm experiencing. This is, and their best thing is like, oh, we'll just, send people to therapy and give them a pill and it's done. It just happens, whatever. This weird phenomenon, but it's so much more than that. And that's actually the premise of the first half of my book is diving into what I learned about sleep paralysis and the astral realm, and what dream warfare, essentially, which actually there are CIA documents to prove that now. And it led me down this rabbit hole that just forced me out of my my belief system, and I had no choice but to believe in these things that I once laughed at. And that's how it started for me. Like, it was through this darkness that actually helped me see the light as well. And it was just looking back on it, it was this beautiful snowball of synchronicities. Like, it was this beautiful dance that led me to the ultimate realization that I literally didn't know what I didn't know. And I was so clueless to the reality of the situation on this planet. And the only way to learn about it and for it to be real is to experience it. I don't care. You can listen to stories all day long and believe it, but you're never going to quite, like, wisdom. It's wisdom that can't be taught, right? You can't actually gain that knowledge unless you've been there. And then now you can relate with other people that have, and you can help them. And that's what our show has become. Like, we don't skeptically interview people. Like, I'm living this stuff. I'm experiencing all the same stuff our guests are experiencing, and sometimes more. And I don't have to question them because I know it's real. It's happening to me. So what do? We can actually go deeper and have real conversations about it and take it to the next level. And I think that's where, like, the magic occurs, because now people have found a place where there's a group of us out here having discussions about this stuff. And we're not just constantly asking the same questions as the skeptics. Were you on drugs? Were you drinking? Whatever.
That.
I know. And I still get asked that sometimes. And I'm like, really? Like, are you not paying attention right now? Like, there are hundreds and thousands of people experiencing this, and, like, just listen with an open heart, and you'll know, like, this isn't a matter of somebody just having a weird experience while they're drunk, right? And by the way, I wasn't drunk or on drugs when this happened, so it's just interesting, like, the programming, that cognitive dissonance, the autopilot programming, these responses that people jump to when you tell them these stories, when they don't know where to file it. So they're like, well, this guy sounds like a meth addict or a meth head or something, So it's really interesting, the kind of pushback you get and the ridicule. But at the end of the day, I know what I know, and it doesn't mean I'm right, but I know what happened to me. So I don't have any problem talking about it seriously. And that's where we are. And whatever you want to get into tonight, I'm happy to.
Well, I love your candid take on it, because I think we've all reached that dead end. Like, what is this all about? Who's holding the answers? Is there any answers out there? What have you learned about yourself through this entire journey?
Oh, man, that's the whole thing. It's been a path of self-discovery, which is laid out in my book, very meticulously and detailed. And it's a long, you could call it a hero's journey if you want, but it's the story of a guy who travels through the darkness to find the light. And it's really at the end of the day, I realized that I'm so much more than I was ever told or taught or believed, and that not just me, but all humans, and we're programmed with these narratives and with these lies, unfortunately, and we have to unlearn and learn a lot of times along the way. It's constantly unlearning and learning, unlearning and learning. Like, if you think you've reached the end, if you think you've found the truth, you most certainly haven't, because the universe is about to throw something else in your path that's going to force you to peel back another layer of the endless onion that is the truth, and you're going to find a deeper layer to this stuff. And every time that you think you're on to something, more is revealed, and that's just the way it looks, right? That's how this great awakening, disclosure, how it happens. It's never ending. You're never truly healed. You're never awake. You're just going through layers of it. And what I learned about myself is that I didn't know myself. I genuinely didn't know who I was. I had been living a fake version of myself. I had been wearing a mask. I had been squeezing into a mold, this cardboard cutout version of myself that everybody else wanted to see. I knew the version that they were expecting to show up, and that's what I would show up as. And then, you have to start looking around and asking your question, well, if I'm experiencing this, like, other people have to be living under these fake identities as well, whether they realize it or not. And, this led me down this whole rabbit hole of, like, trying to figure out who I was. And I had this entity attachment that I didn't even know I had. And it was eventually removed from this Reiki healer. And then, like, once it was removed, I remember, like, it was like I was learning how to walk again. I was like, oh, this entity that had been with me for God knows how long was like fueling all my negative behavior, my toxic traits, and which included like drugs, sex, and alcohol, and that whole path I took after my mother passed away. But really, I was like, I don't know who I am. If that wasn't me, then who am I? Because I suddenly didn't crave that stuff anymore because this thing wasn't working through me. And that's what, and I was like, well, if I had that, how many other people had it? And it was like, oh, everybody, unless they're actually on some sort of path to do energy work and clear. And it was just this wild moment for me because I remember I was in an interview one time and somebody asked me the weirdest question about like dating. They're like, well, what's your type? And then I was like, I used to know what my type was. I used to think I knew what my type was, but then I realized I didn't even know who I was. So if I don't know who I am, how can I actually have a type of girl, And I was like, I genuinely don't know who I am. And I'm still figuring it out. And that what you have to do is ask yourself every day, like, who am I? Like, what am I actually doing here? And you have to be like careful not to like kind of get led astray or slip into these distractions or be pulled off course by these distractions that are always in place to pull us off our path when we're on this, the path of the light and the awakening. So you just constantly have to ask yourself, I don't know who I am, but I know I wasn't who I thought I was, because that version of me had no clue what he was doing. And I still don't know what I'm doing, but at least I'm walking around with somewhat of self-awareness, and I'm asking myself these questions that I never even occurred to me to ask in the beginning 25 years of my life.
It is kind of ridiculous, as we have 3 minutes to go here, how the phenomena, when it takes over, just keeps on throwing everything at you. And it's not just paranormal experiences or ET experiences. It's a little bit of everything that you go down this path, and you really end up questioning absolutely everything about it. How have you been able to stay on an even keel without falling down the rabbit hole that you've been pushed into?
That's a great question. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do, actually, because you find out a lot of dirty truths about the reality and about people in this movement, and a number of things that not everybody is who you think they are, and not everything is what you thought it was, including simple things in life sometimes. And you realize like how deep it actually goes, and it can be so disheartening sometimes. And it honestly, what's kept me going is doing the podcast, because I realize, we've been programmed with these lies. We get told the same lie over and over until it becomes a reality, a consensus reality everybody believes in. It doesn't mean it's true, but we all believe in it. Well, I was like, well, the same thing has to work with the truth and with this information. So by every week having these conversations, these amazing conversations with all these beautiful souls that are having these experiences, it's a constant reminder of why I'm doing this. So anytime I would start to feel disheartened or unmotivated, we would do the show because it was scheduled. Sometimes I didn't even want to do it, and I would do it, and I would walk away feeling revitalized. I'm like, oh, this is a good feeling. And it was like that constant reminder. So the show was like helping the audience, but it was actually helping me more than anyone even realized. Like I needed it too. It was like this forced therapy. And I had my co-host, and we kind of hold each other accountable. So it wasn't just like me doing the show and I could say, I don't feel like doing it this week, because you got to show up for somebody else, and then vice versa. And so we held each other accountable. Then the audience was there, and it's kept me realizing, and all the positive feedback and all the amazing things that we hear from people just keeps me understanding that we actually are making a difference. And that's what I go back to at the end of the day. And there's no choice. Like anytime something tries to stop you or beat you down, I take that as a challenge. I'm like, oh, you think you can like cancel our YouTube channel and do this or do that? Well, watch this. And I double down and see how far I can push it. And it's constantly testing yourself. And you have to make it interesting, because if you just fold it over and stuck your head back in the sand, like what's the point? So you got to keep going.
You definitely have to, as we got about 20 seconds left before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Tyler Kiwala is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And when we return from the break, we're going to get into his own contact experiences. What happened with the shadow people? Why does he think that this goes a lot deeper to a shadow government? Yeah, it's going to get deep tonight, everybody, and you're going to enjoy it. This is Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Our guest is Tyler Kiwala, and we're going to turn up the woo here when we return. All right, we are clear, my friend. So just a reminder, our YouTube audience and our podcast audience can hear us. Our radio audience cannot. Good start.
We are we off break?
Yeah, we're just on break on our radio side, but our YouTube and podcast audience can still hear us.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we do this? We awkwardly have a conversation.
We just hang out, man.
Right.
We just hang out. You know? That's what I do. I mean, you can do what you want. I mean,
right.
I'm just here to be happy. Dude,
how long is
you're the breaks go? It's about another 4.5 minutes.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I'm going to use the restroom really quick then.
Yeah, go ahead. We'll be right.
All right.
I'll take you out and I'll bring you back in. Hi, everybody. Mike, I appreciate that. And guys, thank you so much for the support of that first video that Tim and I put out. And thank you for finding those EVPs in there. I've cleaned a couple of them up a little bit. I don't know if I can. Let me try something here. Hold on. Oh, will that play? Let me just try something here. These are the two most impressive ones. See if I can get these to play if you haven't heard them yet. Can I do it? Can I do it? Okay, that's on the Chrome tab window. Let's see if we can get this. Tell me if you hear this. Because I know I will be able to, but I'm not sure you'll be able to. Can you guys hear that? Yes, no? That was probably my nose. Very lightly. Okay. Let's try this. Hold on. See if I can do this here. All right, we'll go this way. Hold on. Bring Tyler back in here. Let's turn this up a second. Hold on. Oh, cancel. Let's just stop. So that was the first one where you said captain or captive. And here's the second one, the second good one. So he says, uh-oh, and then there's a giggle. That's definitely a laugh. Don't know if you were able to hear that okay or not, but that's still kind of cool. All right.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was.
Let me turn that down. There we go.
Where were those captured?
We just captured them a week ago on Saturday at a plane crash site up here.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean those were clear voices.
Yeah, that was. There were only two of us there. We're about 25, 26 miles deep into the forest. So there is nobody around.
Right. Yeah. What was interesting, I heard somebody telling a story about communicating with a ghost, and they had this whole weird experience where they realized that the ghost was living in a very physical reality, another parallel reality, and it thought the ghost who he thought he was communicating with basically thought that he was the ghost.
That would not
And
surprise me.
so it's like we're kind of sharing the same space, and some of these like soft spots in our reality where the like two timelines converge. Like this is where these we can pick up these EVPs and stuff, and sometimes it might not even
Yep.
like even though it's a deceased loved one or deceased person, we technically never die because the soul's infinite. So you're
True.
just
True.
communicating with something
Hold
on
th-
the others. Okay.
hold that thought. We're coming back in 3 seconds.
Okay.
Here comes the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We greatly appreciate you tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hey, we want to say hello to everyone tuning in. Make sure your tinfoil is tight and raring to go. And we remind all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, you can always check out our free archives on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. From Journey to Truth podcast, we have Tyler Kiwala here, and he is an experiencer of the unknown, and we're going to break it all down this half hour. Tyler, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you. This is a good time. I appreciate it. And thank you for whoever is putting my links in the chat. I appreciate that. And I saw Jessica Jones, the cryptid huntress in there. And I just want to say hi to her.
She's one of my favorites. Not going to lie. She's one of my favorites. Big shout out to the cryptid huntress. Did you know I nicknamed her?
No, maybe I did, but I forgot. I don't know, but it's a great nickname.
Yeah, she deserved it. She deserved it. I'm glad she went with it because it's pretty awesome. It is pretty awesome. All right, let's get right to your experiences. So you mentioned your first experience that you had, kind of came out of nowhere after your mother passed away, and you woke up literally floating in the air. I mean, that is kind of freaky and trippy, and you mentioned that there was shadow people around when that happened.
Yeah, so actually I didn't wake up floating. I was awake the whole time. I never fell asleep. Like I started floating out of my bed while I was still awake. First, my TV remote started floating, and then I tried to reach up and grab it, and that's when I came out of bed. Like I was in this tractor beam, or somebody turned off the gravity. And at the end of that is whenever I was paralyzed and something was on top of me. Whenever I was slammed back down in the bed. And I didn't see anything. I could feel the weight of something, but I couldn't see anything at first. So the shadow people didn't show up until later, until I started discovering what was actually happening to me during the sleep paralysis. And I learned how to lucid dream, and I learned how to wake myself up out of a dream at any given moment because I understood I was dreaming. And lucid dreaming is a whole interesting topic in itself. So once I learned how to do that, that's when I started seeing the shadow people, because I would wake up and catch them in my room, and they would be surprised to see that I was waking up before they were able to climb on top of me and paralyze me. And that's how I ended up overcoming it. I was like, oh, this is a very real thing. This isn't something that's just happening in my dream. There's actually entities in my room involved with this, So the shadow people came later.
What was your first impression of seeing the shadow people?
Well, when once I realized like there would be these infiltrators in my dreams that would just like show up and they didn't belong, and it was like a scary movie. They like slowly walk to you, and then once they get to you, then I would wake up paralyzed every time they would reach out and touch me, and they could look however they wanted, just like in the movies. Like all that stuff's real. And when I realized, I was like, well, I have all this other control over my dreams because I had been exploring with my newfound abilities and lucid dreaming. I was able to like walk around and explore these other realities and like pause and fast forward and rewind. And it was this whole weird thing. I'm like, what is dreaming? What even is this? Right. And I would see these infiltrators, these people that didn't belong, and they would literally like come almost like they were walking through a clear wall. They would just come in. And at first I didn't know what to make of it, but then as they got to me, that's when I would wake up paralyzed with like something on top of me. And it wasn't until the first time I thought, well, why don't I just wake myself up before this guy gets to me? And the first time it was in my dream, it was a man in overalls coming after me, a big giant guy. And I ran into this closet, into this house, and I went to hide from him. And he reached down to grab me, and I just told myself to wake up. And I woke myself up, and I literally witnessed a shadow person next to my bed in the process of climbing on top of me. And it was just as shocked as I was. It did not expect me to wake up and see it. It didn't expect me to wake up at all. And there was no facial expression, but it's clearly a humanoid shadow, but you can still feel energy and sense energy. And it was startled, and I was like, both of us froze kind of. And then it just took off and like left the room and glided around the foot of my bed and out the door. And I watched it so clearly, and I was like, okay, like this is like becoming tangible. Like at first it started off in the dream world and whatever, and I tried to write it off, but now this is like actually something in my bedroom that I can perceive. And that it was a very scary, surreal moment, because prior to that, I was able to write it off. It would almost be like something happening to you every night, but then you finally catch it on camera, and then it changes everything, because now you know that somebody's actually coming into your room and climbing on top of you. Like that's it. That's what it was like. I'm like, oh, this isn't sleep paralysis. It's what I was experiencing. It had nothing to do with some weird medical condition. This was dream astral warfare. Like these things were coming after me, loosh harvesting. And this was like a very dark thing. And sometimes they would just be in the corner, like watching, like these watchers, and then other times it would be like, they would be very like, one time, this was like crazy. And I don't care if people laugh at this anymore, but this is what I saw. One time I woke myself up and I saw a short little guy with a jack-o'-lantern head. And I know that sounds crazy, but I actually read Jason Quitt. If anybody knows Jason Quitt, his book, Forbidden Knowledge, he talks about seeing a very similar entity like that. I'm like, oh, so it's not just me. So other people are seeing like these weird entities that are supposed to only exist in sci-fi and horror films. I'm like, well, I think all these ideas come from somewhere, right? And they would, it wasn't just shadow people, and it was just all different shapes and forms. And sometimes like these little like blob looking guys that remind me of Slimer from Ghostbusters. Like they come sometimes and like try to wrap around your head, and like almost like a suction around your head. And you can hear those, like they're very like audible. You can actually hear them because they're like right around your head. And like, you got to like learn how to fight these things off. And it's this crazy thing, but it all stems from something happening in my dream. And that something is always someone, they get tricky. They always test the fence, right? To see where the weaknesses are. So they would then they started cloaking themselves in my dream. And then I caught on to that. And then they started showing up as loved ones and family members. Like I thought my dead mother was visiting me, and she morphed into this demon, and I woke up with this thing on top of me. And then they would show up as animals, and then they would show up as objects, because once I would figure out the trick and it wouldn't work anymore. So they kept trying to deceive me. Then they showed up as objects, and I saw this amazing grandfather clock in my dream. That was just so intriguing. I had to go touch it. And as soon as I touched it, boom, the fight was on. There was this thing on top of me. So I had to keep adapt and overcome. It was the name of the game for both of us. They were figuring out new ways to get to me, and I was figuring out new ways to identify, basically spot them and identify them. And then I realized, then I started learning about well, how can I stop this? And that's when I learned about calling in protection and putting a golden or a white light around you, a sphere of white light or whatever it is. You like imagination is so powerful, and you can start like calling in Jesus and all these guides and stuff. And I started working with like these angels and like ascended masters and like people, stuff that I didn't actually believe in, but I had to try something, and it was working. I would learn to protect myself, and they wouldn't come back that night. If I didn't do that, they would just come right back. And the next time I fell asleep. So I had to learn how to put up protection. And once I did that, then it really stopped. And then once I realized, like invoking the name of Jesus, like that was like, seemed to be the end all be all. And the only reason I started doing that, because we interview people, and we interviewed a whistleblower that said it's forbidden to use the name of Jesus in a underground military base because they're ran by the reptilians, and that name holds power, and they don't allow people to mention that name in their underground military bases because it's all shadow government. Nothing is what we think it is. It's not. They do not in any capacity have our best interest in mind, and especially the private sector that's doing all these experiments. But I was like, well, if they're not allowed to say it, then it means that word, that just that name in general holds power. So I started calling in Jesus when this stuff would happen, and they can't even exist in the frequency of that name, much less like the actual being himself. Like, I don't understand how it all works, but I know it works. And then, you have to figure out new ways to protect yourself and like spiritual hygiene. And I realized like, okay, I'm doing this work, exposing the truth. We're getting censored on every platform, literally calling out the corruption in the government, in the world as it is, as we see it. And like, I'm in the middle of this spiritual warfare, and it's happening down to a very personal level in my life, in the bedroom, in relationships. It works through people if it can't get to you, and is a massive game of deception and trickery and black magic and things that we don't even quite understand yet unless you experience it and understand that. Like everything you see in Harry Potter, all that stuff, like if you research Illuminati, secret societies, these people believe in this stuff. They actually call themselves wizards, and they actually talk about werewolves and vampires being very real things, and that they can actually achieve these states of consciousness and these states of beings by taking these certain oaths and drinking these blood. I mean, it's a crazy thing, but it's all real. And like the CIA literally released 13 million pages of documents in 2017 talking about dream warfare, shadow or sleep, or what do they call it? Dream walking, which is literally an ability to project your consciousness into somebody else's dream. And then the dream warfare document talks about sending people after you in your dreams to try to kill you in your sleep. Like it's a literal CIA documents. And they have documents about walking through walls and how you can match the frequency of a solid object and pass through it. And nothing, nothing is real if you can, like that's how these UFOs and these craft and stuff, they can pass through things because it's all frequency. Like a solid is only a solid because you believe it is. And once you match its frequency, you can pass through it. It's really interesting, but it's all broken down in these documents. It's not even a theory anymore. That you can go on CIA.gov and read about all this stuff. So I was blown away to find all this like evidence of things I was experiencing. And here it is right here in the internet now. It kind of got slipped out there. Not many people know about it, but it's all there. And it's just an amazing thing, amazing place we're living, where anything is possible. And the fact that people are still trying to squeeze all this stuff into these old narratives without expanding that's more of a magic trick than the actual magic that is possible, which is anything. And that's what we have to realize.
Why do you think so much darkness happened to you?
I feel like to experience the light, because I didn't believe in the light, and it was through the darkness that showed me the light, and I would have never found it otherwise. And what's interesting, you asked me that, Sean Ryan just interviewed Dave Mustaine from Megadeth, and he asked Dave Mustaine the same question. How did you find God? And he goes, by getting beat up. And it was his path of getting beat up in that darkness that led him to God, right? So I think in some cases we choose this from a higher perspective, and we have to go through that darkness to find the light. And that's the only way that you can actually even appreciate life in general and appreciate the joy in life, is you struggle through the darkness, right? And then you come out the other side, and then you have a newfound appreciation for everything. And I mean everything, And so you have to we always have to have the humility to self-correct when we're wrong and admit that we just sometimes don't know, or we don't, even if we think we know, we could be wrong. And don't marry yourself to your beliefs, and don't identify with your beliefs, because that is just another program. And like ultimately, like love at the end of the day, and like dropping into your heart, that's where you find the truth. And you know, you can fall into these traps and these psyops and these deceptions and these narratives and these distractions. That's what they're all there to do, is distract you. And if you get stuck in that loop, then you're stuck in that loop, and it's a consciousness trap, and you're never going to be able to expand or grow outside of that. And they always have a lid. You got to find a way of life that doesn't have a lid, something that's not capping your growth. Like, you have to find a way to live your life and experience this reality without something holding you down, like a belief. Like literally, I feel like beliefs chain us down, because once a new concept enters our awareness, but if we've already made up our mind about something, we're not open to this new concept that could actually expand us and lead us to something beautiful, because we've already made up our minds like, no, this is the way reality is, and I know it because that's what I believe, that's what I was told. But if you just have the humility to like, listen, maybe I'm wrong, let's explore this and see what happens. And then if you don't have a problem with like even me, sometimes I have to like tell our audience, hey guys, we might have been wrong about that last guest, or you know, we thought this was true, but that might not be the case. We've had to do that a few times. But if you do that, it's so rewarding and so gratifying. I mean, you actually grow. Like, you literally can feel yourself expanding whenever you acknowledge that you were wrong. Instead of like, it's so easy to run with a lie than it is to face the truth. But if you face the truth, I mean, you're going to go places, and it's not always easy. The truth is hard sometimes. And I know we're supposed to be talking about aliens, but this stuff is like, it all comes into play. Like, the extraterrestrial thing plays a very large role in this too.
It is all one phenomena as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure you feel that way as well. I mean, as you go down this path and this journey to try and figure out everything about it, which I think is impossible because I'm on the same journey you are, just on a different path. Where
Right.
do you feel you are on your journey? Like, how far down the rabbit hole have you gone, or what do you believe? Because there's just so many different avenues to take on this all at once. And just when you think you're getting the grasp of something, it does a big U-turn and turns right around.
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I might have already answered it in what I was explaining before, but I just don't. Where am I at now? I'm at the point where when people tell me, if somebody could walk in the room and say, I just saw a fairy outside chasing a unicorn, and a pterodactyl flew by. Like, I'm at the point where like anything is possible. And I don't like, I know that's a crazy example, but I'm at this point where like I will entertain the wildest experiences that people are coming forward with. And because I've experienced so much myself, I will entertain it. I don't laugh at it anymore, even as laughable as it might be. And it might not be true, but I'll entertain it because I genuinely don't know sometimes. And I'm like, what if there's something to it? And it's being laughed at because that truth, acknowledging something as silly as a fairy or whatever it is, might access you, grant you access into this other realm of these other frequencies where these elementals exist that we hear about in mythology. Maybe that's real. Why not explore it? Why do we have to laugh at it? Why do we have to just say, oh, you're lying, and just frame everybody as something because it threatens what we believe in? So I'm at this point where I'm just open to anything at this point. And I used to argue about my beliefs and get in these stupid fights online and all this stuff. And then it got me nowhere except backwards, right? Like I was like, I'm just spiraling. And I realized, oh, like there's actually disinformation agents and CIA agents and plants and stuff in the community too, that are out there in the comment section purposely trolling and triggering people, knowing that certain people won't be able to bite their tongue and they'll have to say something. As soon as they say something, they took the bait. And now they're literally in this lower frequency, stooping down to their level, arguing with somebody they don't even know, that doesn't even have a picture, a profile picture, or a name. It's usually just an avatar with some screen name. You literally don't even know who you're talking to. So you got like, I'm like, why am I allowing this stuff to trigger me? And if you're getting triggered, then there's something there that you need to learn about yourself, because that obviously you're there's something still within you that's unhealed. And if you're getting triggered, there's a reason for it. And it's usually not something the other person's doing. It's something that you need to recognize about yourself. So, I mean, it's just not the easiest road to navigate, but it's amazing to like understand, like, this is like the craziest experience that we could have signed up for.
When did ET arrive for you?
What year was that? 2018, maybe. Around 2018. Yeah. I was experiencing all the shadow people and all the stuff. And I had heard about all like the ET stuff and UFOs. I knew it was all out there. Right. And it wasn't until I had an experience where I literally woke up. Something woke me up out of my sleep, and there was, it's going to sound silly, but whatever. There was like this, it looked like a hologram of a gray ET head, just floating in my room, like just staring at me. And I thought I was still sleeping, like dreaming at first. And I like had to like rub my eyes, and it was still there. And it just something telepathically said, close your eyes. And I closed my eyes again. And also I felt like I was plugged into like a low voltage power supply. My body was buzzing. It was uncomfortably buzzing, to the point where my boxers literally started riding up on me because I was literally vibrating when this happened. And I closed my eyes again, and my consciousness was pulled up onto what I would call craft. I could only see the room I was in, and I was on this. It was like an abduction of the consciousness. My physical body remained in bed, and this is a whole other thing that we can talk about. Like, they have the ability to take your consciousness out of your body in the REM state of sleep and do things, right? And that's also in the CIA documents, and that's how cloning gets into cloning and all these other things. But I got pulled out. My consciousness was pulled out of my body, and I was laying on this table, and there was like these energy bars, golden, like orange glowing energy bars. They weren't like a metal strap. It wasn't even touching my skin, but it was like a force field holding me down. And the room looked like a white dome, but it looked like the walls themselves were white, kind of like that moon above your in your background there. It was just like everything was white, and there was they weren't the typical gray aliens that we would recognize, like the picture, like the one next to you. It kind of looked like a gray. They were more brown. They looked like a weird little hybrid. It wasn't this standard gray, but it's the closest thing. So I just call them grays. And there was 3 of them on each side of me, and they had 3 fingers each, and they were scanning, like doing, like, almost looked like they were doing Reiki healing. They were scanning over my body. And in these experiences, somehow you just automatically know telepathy. It doesn't even like make sense, but you just start talking telepathically. You're like, as if it's natural, and we've just forgotten that we can do it. And I was asking them all these questions, like, who are you? Where am I? What are you guys doing to me? Like, over and over. And it was just all met with silence. Like, they weren't actually talking to me. And I eventually like realized they weren't going to answer me. So I just shut up. And they were working on me, but the vibration was getting so intense that my physical body in bed, I literally had to go pee, and I couldn't hold it. Like, I was going to go. It was like my body was plugged into a low voltage electricity, what it felt like. So I told them, I was like, guys, I'm going to like pee. I got to go to the bathroom. And then next thing I know, my consciousness shoots back into my body, and I'm back in bed. And I'm like looking, I'm like, holy, and I get up and I go to the bathroom. But the whole time I'm going to the bathroom, there's this tingling on top of my crown. Like, it felt like I was plugged into something. It was so intense. It was literally so intense. I'm like, what is going on? I kept rubbing my head.
I'm going to stop you right there for a second. The first time I was taken, I woke up on the table. And when I was about to, after they cut open the top back of my head, almost exactly where you just said yours was, I had to pee.
Really?
and I kept yelling. My face was in one of those donuts where I could speak in, and I kept yelling at them exact same that I had to go to the bathroom, and I was going to pee all over their table if they didn't get me back.
Right.
And I woke up, man, and I literally had the best pee of my life. My head was throbbing like I was hungover. I had the worst hangover ever, and I just stood there.
Right.
And it was, You know, dude, I am blown away by how much you and I have in common here. It's really tripping me out.
Yeah, that's wild. So, yeah, I mean, there's obviously some correlations there, but so anyway, I was going to the bathroom and then I felt this thing on top of my head. Well, I came back to my bed and I noticed that my dog looked like she was sedated, like she was out. And it was strange to me because she doesn't, I know she's a light sleeper. She would wake up if I got up, and I just noticed it. I'm like, it looked like she was just out, sedated. And I wondered if they had done something to her. So
Right.
I laid back down in bed thinking it was over. And I closed my eyes and my consciousness got pulled right back up onto this ship.
Hold that thought. We're going to take a break here. Tyler Kiwala is our guest tonight. ET Experiences. Do you got aliens? We'll be back on Spaced Out Radio. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott. Dude, that tripped me right out. You were talking about that. Like, totally tripped me out. I'm going to take a quick break here. We got about 5.5 minutes. I'm going to put you in the green room, and I'll be right back, okay?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. I've been battling back spasms all day. Oh my God. They suck. Back spasms suck. All right. All right. Good to have you here, Tyler.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. I appreciate the conversation and the good questions and the genuine interest in the subject because it helps it flow.
It's awesome. All right. We'll continue with your ET stuff when we come back.
Mm-hmm.
And go from there.
Somebody said Tyler always has to pee or eat Taco Bell. Eat Taco Bell. What's that one about?
That's me, man. I'm all about the Taco Bell.
That's funny. I haven't had Taco Bell in ages. I don't even remember when.
Big thank you tonight to Kitty Cattywag, Eternity Eternal, Pam, Candace, Mel, Mike times 2. Here we go with hour 2. Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We're interviewing Tyler Kiwala on his ET experiences. We're having a good time. Hope you are too. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Defletic. Defletic is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. From Journey to Truth podcast, Tyler Kiwala is here talking about his amazing experiences from ET contact, shadow people, and even shadow government. We're getting into it deep here this hour. Tyler, thank you so much for being here. You have a book out as well.
I do. It just came out about a month ago. It's called Bleedthrough. I'm holding it up now for the people watching. Bleedthrough, Tales from Another Timeline. And everything I've kind of talked about today on the show is in the book, plus much more. It's about 400 pages, and it tells a story of not just my experiences, but some recruitment attempts into some military programs and targeting and things that happened and memories I have from other programs, and I guess you could say lifetimes of realities that just don't have a place here. So I decided to write a book about it and see if it resonates with people. So if you're interested, you can pick it up on Amazon.
Love it. Great job. Great job on that.
Yeah,
Your ET experiences.
Yeah.
You were talking about it right before the break.
Yeah, so let's get back into it. Okay, so I went to the bathroom and I came back after I'd noticed my dog was sedated, and I lay back down thinking it was over. I thought the experience was over. And as soon as I closed my eyes, my consciousness was pulled right back up onto the ship, wherever I was. And the same little guys, the ETs, were working on me, doing the same thing. And I just understood that they weren't going to say anything to me. So I laid there for a couple more minutes, however long it was. It couldn't have been much longer. And then they all stepped aside, and this taller guy walked in the room, and he had like a white doctor's coat on, but he looked like an insectoid hybrid. Like he looked like kind of like a mixture of like a praying mantis and the ants, but humanoid, right? And he had like a doctor's coat on, and they all stepped aside. And he walked up to the bed from my right, and he leaned in close to me. And he looked in my eyes like he was looking at my soul. And he went back and forth from eye to eye like this. And like exactly like an eye doctor would if they're checking your eyes with the light. Like he was doing that, but with his eyes. He was real close to me. And these big bug eyes, I didn't even know exactly where to like focus. And he was just going back and forth, looking into my eyes. And then he like kind of scanned over my whole body, and then he looked to his right and then to his left at the little guys, and like gave them both like a nod of approval, and then the whole thing just ended, and I was back in my body in bed, and it was the wildest thing. And I kept closing my eyes again to like get it back. I'm like, wait, what just happened? But because it was like I was very aware that my physical body was in bed, but my consciousness was having this whole experience, and it was kind of I didn't know what to make of it. But it doesn't end there. So the next day I just happened to have a Reiki session already scheduled with this Reiki healer I was seeing a lot at the time because I had just learned about it. And she was helping me do some energy work and all the chakra alignment and that stuff. And I was pretty new. I was very new to it back then, actually. So it was intriguing to me to watch, like, even experience energy work. And at the end of every session, she would like tell me messages or things that she saw or downloads she got. And at the end of that session, I didn't say anything about what happened to me the night before. And she's like, it was the strangest thing. She's like, I saw you. She was like, I was up on a ship with you, and you were laying on this bed, and these little aliens were working on you. And she's like, I knew we were on a ship because I look out the window and I could see Earth. And I was like, shut up. Like, I'm like, are you kidding me? And we started comparing notes, and I told her what happened to me the night before, and she was mind blown. I'm like, there's no way that you just saw that same thing. And she even explained without me telling her. She's like, yeah, you were strapped down with like these like golden bars, and they were working on you. And I asked them what they were doing to you, and they told me that they were infusing crystal into the base of my spine, and like in an etheric sense. And she was like, well, what's that for? And they explained to her that we're all going from like carbon-based to crystalline beings as we ascend, but our physical bodies weren't adapting to the new frequency because of, like, for one, the frequency warfare, and they're trying to block the sun that actually gives us the codes we need to activate our DNA and actually ascend, right? And whatever ascend means, but actually activate ourselves and grow and develop spiritually. And our physical bodies weren't adapting well to the new energies that we were moving into. So they were helping us essentially by infusing these crystal, like this etherically, this crystal into our bodies. So it would help receive these new higher frequencies, this new density that we were moving into. And it was this whole amazing thing. And I was just like, I can't believe she's telling me all this right now, because I didn't tell her what happened to me. She picked up all this, like what she saw during the session. So it was like answering a question I didn't even ask. Like, I didn't like even think to ask what they were doing. She asked, and we take it all with a grain of salt, but that's what she saw. And she was like, you were shown that, you were like, they let you see that because you're supposed to relay this message to people. And like, they're here, like, not every abduction, not everything is negative. There are beings here helping us too. And that was like the whole experience. So nothing about it was ever negative. No one hurt me. It actually felt positive. Even while I was up there, like watching what was happening, it never felt like any harm was being sent my way. So a lot of people immediately want to jump to the conclusion that it was some sort of deception or screen memory or whatever the case may be, that, and I was just duped and something very bad happened to me. But I don't feel that was the case. And I can't, like, I'm not going to force that narrative into my experience, because that's just not what it was.
You mentioned that you believe, or before I get to that, you mentioned that you have had interactions with reptilian type beings as well. That is one that I have not had the pleasure of seeing, and I'm kind of thankful for that. What was your experience like with reptilians?
Well, one time I saw him was more or less just like a dream scenario, right? I saw him very clearly in the astral realm, and they were in my dream, and it was kind of like this battle thing. But that was I don't really talk about that ever because it wasn't very prominent. But what happened one day was I didn't see him, but I woke up violently ill out of a sleep one morning. But I knew I was taken. Like, I had it was like a memory on the tip of your tongue. Like you knew you were somewhere, but you couldn't grab the memory. It was like it was fleeting. I'm like, I know for a fact because I woke up sick and I was in this awkward position in my bed, and I was like ill. Like I don't know how to explain it. I wanted to curl up in this ball, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And I'm like calling my friends who are like energy healers. I'm like, can you look into this? Like, I don't know what's going on with me. I woke up like this. I'm like, feel like it felt like a cold or a flu, but it wasn't that. Like, I don't know how to describe it. And two separate I reached out to a couple friends hoping to see who would like reply first, because back then I was new to this stuff and I relied on all these psychics and intuitives that I knew to tap in. That's just where I was at. And two people separately both came back. They texted me back with the same analysis, same conclusion. They're like they saw it as radiation poisoning. Like I was experiencing the effects of like radiation poisoning, and it made sense to me because I knew what I was feeling, and like I couldn't hardly formulate a sentence. I was getting sicker and sicker, and one of the friends was local, and she was also an energy healer, but not necessarily Reiki. Everybody has their own modality, right? And she was like, I'd be happy to like open up the office today if you want to come in. And I was like desperate for help. So I went in and I laid on the bed, and she is very gifted, and she saw immediately what was done to me, and she broke down in tears. And like she couldn't even get herself to tell me what she saw that they were doing to me on this craft. And she was like but she did tell me, she literally wouldn't tell me, she's like, it's horrific, but she did tell me that they were the poisoning that I'm feeling, that she was shown that like some sort of a green liquid was being injected into me like an IV, and it had like taken over my body. And that's what I was experiencing. So she was like trying to help like transmute this, right, and like do this whole session on me. And while she did that, this next thing I know, it looks like she's literally like physically trying to fight something off. And she was like, this presence came into the room and was speaking into her ear in what she called slask, which is like a form of reptilian tongue. And they kind of speak in tongues, but it's like it's a very hypnotic frequency. Like the way we talk is a form of that, essentially. Like spelling, and we're always
Right.
casting spells and talking, and we hiss when we say the letter S. Like it's all like Slytherin type of reptilian tongue, and that's by design. But this guy was like clearly in her ear trying to like literally she was explaining to me what she was hearing. She didn't understand the language, but she was explaining to me what it sounded like. And she's like, he's trying to stop me from doing this. And I'm like, what do you see? And she's like, a lizard, a reptilian. Like he looks like a lizard. And I'm like, seriously? And she's like, I'm not even gonna cuss, but she starts like getting into like this battle with this guy energetically. And like she's literally, I'm watching this thing play out, and she's clearly seeing something that I can't see. And it's totally this insane thing. And then she finally like calls in all this light and just like casts this thing away. And then like I could feel the room just calm down. And she was like, you were on a reptilian craft last night. And I don't know what exactly their end game was, but that's where you were. And he does not like the fact that you're here right now. And like, I'm trying to reverse what they did. And she spent some time with me and helped me uh, feel better as best as she could. And it was like, it's hard to explain, but being in the room, it was intense. Like it was like, I didn't even know what was happening, because like it would just seem funny. It looked like somebody was shadow boxing, but she was clearly interacting with this reptilian. And she said she was explaining how he talked, and he was hissing and like speaking in these tongues, and it was a language she didn't know, but she knew that he was trying to effectively hypnotize her or like stop her from doing what she was doing. So that was my experience with the reptilian in that sense. And had I like prior actually seeing them like physically in a reality, I've never seen them like that.
How did you react to that emotionally? Because here you are going through this plethora of emotions that you're trying to make sense of the unsensible. How did you keep your mind through all of that, even if it was in a dream state?
I I often thought I was losing my mind, and that's actually a good question because I was remembering and seeing so much that it was actually hard for me to go to work and decipher like what was real anymore, because it was so real for me at night, and it was happening so often. Like I'm only barely scratching the surface of things that was going on with me. And I was remembering and seeing so much that I couldn't. When I would go back to work, it almost felt like this was the dream, right? Then like I was like, what am I doing? Like with this hammer in my hand. It was so weird. Like I felt like it was this was the illusion, right? And and then all of a sudden, one day for no reason at all, everything stopped. I just stopped having experiences for a while. And then I was kind of concerned. I'm like, well, what happened? Like even though it was negative stuff, you start to in a weird way. Like I didn't realize I was almost addicted to something happening every night. And it stopped. And I was like, why is nothing happening anymore? Like, did I do something wrong? What's going on? It's weird. I don't know how to explain it. And I finally reached out like after a while of nothing happening. I had a session with this channeler, and I was always the reason I had so many sessions too is because we were interviewing these guests and they would always offer a free session in exchange for the interview because they were getting lots of clients from doing the show with us. So I did this channel session and I asked like the guy who was channeling like my higher self or something, whatever. And I asked like, why did all my experiences just stop on a dime? And what came through kind of surprised me, but it didn't. And, take all channeled information with a grain of salt. I'm not claiming this is what happened, but this is what came through. He said that something happened, something for whatever reason happened that I was remembering too much. Like I was actually seeing and remembering things that like we're not supposed to see. Like this kind of stuff happens to all of us, but we're essentially blank slated. We don't remember it. We wake up and we're none the wiser, right? Some people have physical evidence of it and stuff, and it happens to lots of people. But for some reason, I was like I was remembering it all when I shouldn't have been. And he said that like my guides, whoever my guides were, who were like, who when they realized this, they basically turned the dial down because they looked down my timeline and saw that had I kept going on that trajectory of like experiencing that intensive stuff like over and over, that I would have actually been like certifiably insane, like insane asylum, like I would have gone crazy, not understanding what reality was anymore. And so they like somebody came in and basically dialed it back so I could process what I had already experienced. And then it was like slowly like being leaked. Like then the experiences became more gradual and slower and spread out. So when something did happen, I could process it and understand it and figure out what it meant. And it turned into much more positive stuff after that too. It wasn't always negative, and I felt like I was doing all these clearings and energy work and like calling in Jesus and all that stuff too. So it was this whole amazing thing really that like I was like learning through experience. I didn't know what was happening. I was forced to learn and figure this stuff out on my own without really any like knowledge. We're not taught this stuff in school, so you're just on this path. You got to find the tools that are available. It's like a video game. You got to go look around and see what you need to get to the next level, right? And that's kind of like what it was for me. So to try and keep my mental sanity, I think I had some help there from some guides or something, because I was actually it was becoming very difficult to even have normal conversations with people.
5 minutes ago, before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour, Tyler Kiwala is our guest tonight from Journey of Truth podcast. Tyler, do you feel that you have been spiritually protected, or how do you protect yourself from these incredible experiences that just seem to be at times a little tough?
In a lot of ways now I understand that I'm spiritually protected, but I didn't know that I was the one who had to call in that protection. And it took me a long time to figure that out. Like they don't just come and do it for you, right? You got to understand that this stuff is real first, and you had to figure out how to do it on your own. Once you figure out how to do it, then they'll help you with it, And so it was like this weird, like, it's almost like training, right? It's this weird, like training in a sense. And so then once I realized that I can protect myself, then I felt like I had more protection, because they were like, okay, good. He figured it out. Now, like otherwise it wouldn't have made any sense, or wouldn't have helped me along my journey if they were just doing it all for me. Right. So I had to learn that way. And then, like I said earlier, like calling in Jesus and all that stuff, I would find more I would say mature modalities and ways to do it. And I realized like you couldn't just use the same thing over and over, because even like these dark forces, they'll figure that out. They're monitoring you all the time. And then once you get in a pattern, then pattern recognition is easy for these beings. And once they see like, okay, he does this every day, then they can figure out a way to get in. So you got to change it up a little bit. But then, where was I going with that? I just lost my train of thought. Um,
In regards to protection.
right, protection. Oh man, it was a good point I was going to make too. It just left me.
Well, while you're thinking of that, we got 3.5 minutes to go.
Right.
Let me ask you, in regards to you, why do you think you were chosen for all of this? Have you figured that part out yet?
Um, I think that it's not just me; it's a lot of people going through this stuff, and I think that once we're here on this journey to truth, ironically, once we sign up for that and like actually like step into that role, I feel like you just start experiencing this stuff, because that is the reality that we came down here to, to experience. And once you're on this like truth telling mission, right, the uh, the world becomes a different place. And I feel like we're all here doing a much bigger thing than we realize. And once you start to remember who you are and why you're here, then these things happen to you. It's like they sent once everybody, this is true for anybody. Once you're about to experience this breakthrough, or once you're about to break programming and like move up to the next level, there's reinforcements sent in to keep you at bay. And that may be something as insignificant as you're ready to quit your job and start a podcast and do what you want to do and follow your heart. And then your boss comes in with this amazing promotion that you've always been wanted in a company vehicle, and you just can't say no to it. And it locks you back into that lifestyle that's literally sucking your soul dry, but the money's there. And like, so the devil will work through people if they can't get to you directly. So when you're about to have that breakthrough, it's always interesting how it's like reinforcements are sent in to keep you at bay, and you got to really watch out for that. And I don't even know if I'm answering your question properly, but it's interesting to navigate and understand that like you can fight, we're all here to do something much bigger than we realize. And there are people and forces out there to try and stop us from remembering that. But if we can make it through those trials and tribulations, on the other side of that, it's very rewarding. It's a very rewarding life that actually has purpose. And you feel like you're here on a mission and you're doing something that is actually serving humanity, and not just serving a corporation somewhere working 40 hours a week for retirement.
Do you ever look at your experiences and think what you've lost because of them, whether it's family, friends, relationships, opportunities?
Yeah, and actually, I realized at first when I thought I was losing people and opportunities, I realized I wasn't losing anything. Things were just falling into alignment for me. And what I thought I lost, when I thought I lost a friend, a new friend would come in I would actually attract like somebody else to take that place energetically. But this person was actually a friend and actually had the same interest. And the person I thought I lost, that I thought was my friend, was never my friend to begin with, or they served a purpose for that time in my life. Right. So it's not ever about losing anything. I think you're just always shedding layers, right? And when you're raising your frequency and other people aren't doing the same thing, you're not going to be frequency specific to those friends. So they just kind of like phase out and go into do whatever they're doing in life while you move up.
Tyler Kiwala, we have until the top of the hour. Journey to Truth podcast is his show. We'll take audience questions next on Spaced Out Radio.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
Flying on by, my man. Flying on
Right.
by.
Right. I remember what I was going to say about the protection too. So we can, if you want, I can touch on that again. If not, we
Sure.
can just take questions. It's up to you.
Yeah, we'll fill that in when we return. We got about 5 minutes here.
Yep. But yeah, that's what happened for me. As far as trying to quit my job, I had amazing business opportunities show up right when I'm ready to break free and make that leap. And I had to say no to them. I had to say no to really good money because I knew that wasn't going to serve me. And it was difficult. But what came on the other side of that was a life of abundance that can't be explained with money. It's a different way of living. And I feel like, we're all here for different reasons. But if you're getting that call and you know that you're meant to do something more and you really lean into it, there's people out there, guides, the universe, God, they have your back, and it can be amazing.
I would agree. I would totally agree on that. It's good times, man.
Right.
Good times.
Yeah, it's wild, when being asked these questions and going back and reliving all that stuff. It sounds so intense, but I'm like, I feel like I'm so far removed from the point of origin when this stuff happened years ago. Like, I almost feel like I'm talking about a different person. It's weird because I've grown so much from that. And like, people think that a lot of this stuff still is happening to me, but it's not. And it's just really interesting. Like, when I talk about it, I'm like, that's not even me anymore. But that's what made me who I am. So it's just as relevant, and other people are experiencing the same thing. So it's worth talking about.
Love it. Love it. It's all about helping other people too understand that they're not alone.
Right. Yeah. Ultimately, like, sometimes you feel like you're beating a dead horse talking about this stuff, but there's always somebody new who, like, that you just blew their mind, right? And it's exactly what they needed to hear in that moment, or whatever the case is. And always these constant reminders why we do what we do.
All right, we got about 2.5 minutes.
So is the radio people are just listening to commercial right now?
Yeah. Amanda, we are heading back into the woods on Saturday. And like I said, the first 6 times we're going to be really, or we down one, you're going to see a lot of sitting. But once we, after those 6 times, whatever the phenomena wants us to do, that's what we're going to do.
Are you going squatching?
I don't squatch. I go look for Sasquatch. A number of years ago, I had a talk with John Bindernagel, the late Dr. John Bindernagel, and I had watched a total of 11 minutes of Not Finding Bigfoot television show, and I said, and everything was squatch this, squatch that. And so I said to him, I said, what do you think of that word squatch? And he took a deep breath and he sighed and he said, 70 years of research ruined by one stupid word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Chris Tyne in the chat said he has a thing about the word squatch, not my fault.
Yep.
No, you're not the only one. I've actually heard that from a number of people.
So I have, ever since that moment, I banned that word from my show, and then I have to look like an asshole and correct people.
I don't look at it that way at all. I appreciate it. And so what do you call them then?
Sasquatch, Bigfoot.
Oh, okay, you just don't say.
British Columbia, where I come from, is where the word Sasquatch came from, right?
Right.
So It's just normal for me, I
Right.
guess. So we have a pretty spooky area up here where since 2018 we've been chased out of the forest twice. We've heard them talking. We've heard them roar. We've heard them growl. We're trading with them now. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Give me 2 seconds here. I just got to say a big shout out to Grant, Mike times 2, Mel WD40, Kitty, Eternal, Pam, and Candace for the super chats. Hi, lovely Lavira. And hello, Jeff Steve Garvey. He'll hit a home run for you. Here we go. Here we go, the second half of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. We're hanging out with Tyler Kiwala here from Journey to Truth podcast. We have until the top of the hour. So far, it's been great. We're going to get some audience questions here momentarily. But first, we want to remind all of you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Tyler Kiwala, Journey to Truth podcast is here. And right before the break, you kind of forgot something that you were trying to get out about the spiritual aspect of everything, but you remembered during the break. So I'm going to let you finish up on that before we get to audience questions.
Yeah, it was just something you asked about, how do I protect myself? And what I ultimately realized is that it's a way of lifestyle, right? Like you actually, like, spiritual hygiene is a real thing. And there's a way to keep yourself high vibe, in alignment with like the highest timeline, I guess, with source, with God, like and in your heart. And if you can do things on a daily basis that keep you in that higher frequency, you start existing in this higher frequency where the darkness can't affect you as much. They don't show up. But if you do things like watch a scary movie that literally opens a portal into your living room before bed or into your whatever, like, you're consenting to the darkness and allowing it into your house. So there's a way to live your life so this stuff doesn't happen, and not as frequently. But I was none the wiser to it in the early years. And I was living a very haphazard lifestyle that was inviting this stuff in. So it's all about how you live your life too. It's a great way to protect yourself.
I like how you put it, that it's haphazard the way you were living your life, and allowing this stuff in, because I don't think a lot of people really resonate with that or that type of thinking.
Yeah. You think they don't resonate, or they do?
They don't. They don't resonate with the fact that when they dabble in spirituality, whether it's ghost hunting or going to look for UFOs and summon them in, or use a Ouija board, or go searching for Sasquatch or Dogman, they're there for the thrill. They're not there for the understanding that it can be very dangerous.
Yeah, well, that's true also, but I was talking about a haphazard lifestyle of, like, after my mom died, I kind of went into party and drugs and all this stuff. And so I was like opening myself up to these negative frequencies, right? And there's some really dark stories and some incredible stories too from that time. But also, speaking of like going out and like ghost hunting or whatever, I did go on a paranormal investigation in a cave in the early days. And we all had the equipment and everything. It was like 12 people, 9 o'clock at night in this cave, and it was pretty awesome. On the way home, I felt like, I'm very sensitive. I'm an empath, and I can feel entities around. And I felt this entity, and like this thing literally, like, it felt like it entered my body, and I just knew it came from the cave. And I had to almost pull over the car. It got super sick to my stomach, and I had to get a hold of my Reiki healer or whatever, and she saw immediately that since I just went into this cave without putting up any protection or setting any intentions or whatever, that I basically brought home a hitchhiker. One of these entities came home with me, and I had to clear it the next day. Luckily, I was able to do it, but I felt like that happened, so I can understand that can happen. And now when I go into these situations, I don't just walk in blindly, haphazardly. I'm putting up protection, making sure. And when you have an entity attachment or something working through you, you may never know, and people around you may never know, but it's just subtle variances in your personality or cravings you might have or ways you might react, or you might get aggravated or irritated for no real reason at all. Like those are all things like you should like, okay, why is this happening? There might actually be some energetic external influences that you're completely unaware of. And this is why you got to like energetically check yourself and make sure that you're not just opening yourself up to these things that we don't even know about. We're still learning about, right? So that's kind of where I was going with that.
All right, let's get to some audience questions here because we do have a few for you. Laura is asking, Tyler, have you had any Sasquatch experiences?
Hey, what's up, Fireside Laura? I call her Fireside Laura because I always hang out with her by the fire. She's local. I know her. Yeah, so I have had a few Sasquatch experiences actually, and I mean, I don't even know where to start because there's been a couple of them. But if you're familiar with East Ranch up in Washington State, James Gilliland, that's where I've had my first encounters. And one of them, we actually got some footage, not of an actual Sasquatch, but we were out there in the middle of the night, and about 3 a.m. and this was after, because out there, this stuff, a lot of people have experiences. And during the day, something was like poking my neck and tapping me on the shoulder, but nothing was there. And like, that's just happens to people out there. Everybody has things like that happen. And it ultimately is like the Sasquatch playing with them. So I went out that night looking for him and just to see if I can like connect, really. I just want to connect. And I had two other friends with me, and my one friend had his like night vision camera that he was just occasionally throwing up and bringing it down. And he just happened to be filming whenever we were standing out in the middle of this field, and I felt a big hand like right on the top of my back. Felt like somebody pushed me. And I turned around, and the girl that was with us screamed, and my friend, he jumped, and he was like, I just caught that on film. I'm like, did you? He's like, yeah. So we watched it back, and we didn't see anything physically, but what we picked up on the camera was mind blowing, kind of, because the camera picked up audio that none of us heard. And what the audio was clearly something crunching through the dry grass walking up to us. You hear crunch, 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 like getting louder as if something was walking up to us. And none of us heard that in real time, but somehow the camera picked up that audio. And then we hear crunch, crunch, crunch. And then right as I felt a hand on my back in the video, this orb passes by my back. And like, it's this whole amazing thing that we even caught it. And he wasn't trying. He just happened to be filming just at that moment. Like, and he wasn't filming 100% of the time. So it was like a very real thing. And then after that, we tried to like connect some more, and we all three collectively saw this red orb in the trees, and we just assumed it was them somehow in some capacity. But they're multidimensional beings, in my opinion, and they have abilities I think that we have too. Like the Aboriginals has to have the same abilities as a Sasquatch. People, we think they're like dumb village people, but they're not. They're actually using telepathy and using the Earth's natural portal system, and they can travel interdimensionally just like the Sasquatch can. And there's many studies out there. Actually, our military sends their best men out to train with the Aboriginals, and I know this from interviewing people in Easter Island, Africa, and Australia, because the Aboriginals have abilities that would seem like magic to us, but they're really just doing things that we're already innately capable of, and I find that very interesting.
What do you think they are?
I just think they're an intelligent species like we are, and I think they're existing in another frequency, and they have the ability to step into this reality and to be perceivable in some cases. But I think it's also up to us to like match them and meet them halfway. And I was in Arkansas in January of last year doing like some grid working with some friends, and we climbed the top of this mountain in like the crazy like rain and snowstorm. Nobody would ever do it, but we were called to go up there, and we literally heard this loudest. Well, my friend, she was like, she can communicate. She's like taps into these higher frequencies, and she was like, they're in the trees, And we're like, who's in the trees? And she's like, the Sasquatch. They're watching us right now. It's like, but we can't see them. And we thought, oh, that's cool, but none of us could see anything. And then literally we hear this right behind us. Something slams onto the ground, like jumps out of the tree, and then we hear like something run away, and the tree's going. The branch, it's not windy. The branches look like somebody just slingshotted it. And we turn around and we're watching the branch do this, and you could literally hear something hit the ground and run away. And then she laughed and she was like, that was them. I was like, well, why are we able to hear them and not see them? She's like, because we believe the more you believe, the more the frequency you're on, their frequency. And we were close enough to that frequency to where we can at least perceive them audibly and see the tree move, but we weren't quite in their frequency to actually see them. And what happened next was amazing. Our friend who was actually seeing them and talking to them literally disappeared. And we thought we lost her. And she claimed she was right here the whole time. And she was literally telling us she was having this whole conversation with this Sasquatch that was sitting in this tree. And she was like, I was right here the whole time. And we were running around looking for her. And what we realized happened was she literally found a way to like match their frequency. And she became invisible to us, our own friend. And we thought she was gone. And she was really just like over there having this amazing conversation with this Sasquatch. And she told us all about it. When she came back, we're like, where were you? Like, we were worried. She's like, I was literally right here. And she's like, I couldn't see you guys anymore. I thought you guys left. And like, it was this whole thing, like, did she literally just access this higher frequency and phase out of our perceivable existence? And it was just amazing to think about this stuff. Like, we don't even understand what we're doing when we're going out to, find them or hunt Bigfoot and stuff. Like, they are such more advanced beings than we can ever even understand. And to think that, somebody could go out there and shoot one and could bring it back home as a trophy or something is silly. And, maybe there are some like genetic experiments or something that were let out of a lab somewhere, or these cryptids that we hear about. And there's a number of explanations, and maybe there are different forms of Sasquatch and Bigfoot or whatever that maybe might not be as advanced as others. And it's probably many variations, and it's not just one blanket statement that explains them all.
I think that may be one of the greatest answers I've ever heard. Honestly.
Thank you.
Usually it's the debate, flesh and blood or something else. But you went in depth there. Great answer. Great answer.
You.
Let's go to Hillbilly Herb. What do you think shadow people want?
I think in my case, it was just, if anybody knows about loosh harvesting, it's like they just kind of like siphon your energy. And every time I felt like I had an encounter with them, I felt like my life bar was just being drained like a video game. And sometimes I felt like they were just watching me, observing, like monitoring the timelines, like kind of like the movie The Adjustment Bureau or something, like the Hat Man. Like they're just these watchers in some cases. So I feel like some of them are actually literally physically draining us, and by keeping us in a lower frequency, we're more, we're serving their agenda and not even realizing it. But then again, sometimes I think they're just watching, observing, monitoring, but I don't really know. It's just all speculation, right?
Very true. Very true. Do you think they are more of a dark, sinister type of being, or do you think that they are more just around frequently and we just notice them when strange things occur?
From my personal experience, it's always been something on the negative side. Like, I've never seen a shadow person and had a positive experience. So for me, that's the case. That doesn't mean it's the case for all of them and everybody.
Let's move on. Let's go to Mike. Do you fear of them coming back to take you because of talking about this in these type of interviews?
It used to happen, actually. It's a great question. I would notice if we did a whole episode on reptilians or something and really broke it down, or like covered the Illuminati or the secret societies and got into these darker topics, I would notice that I would get attacked that night, or something would happen that night. And it was a very clear theme. And eventually I was like, well, now I can't, like, now when I do an episode, I do a clearing. I'm burning sage. I set a whole intention. I protect us, the guest, everybody. I do this whole thing every time. And it's really helped. And I'm not just blindly going into it, opening myself up to these frequencies, because our words have power. So when we talk about it, we actually are calling it in, and it's how manifestation works. So I feel like if you have set an intention of protection before you enter into those arenas of talking about these things, you don't have to take it with you when you leave, because you've already set the intention. So I started doing that, and it stopped. I don't worry about being taken or attacked anymore, because it feels like I think I've learned that lesson, and I'm past that phase. I kind of feel like it's, at the end of the day, all of this just feels like one big training ground, to develop some spiritual tools and gain wisdom and knowledge so you can take it to the next level.
Great answer. Great answer. All right, let's move on to another question here. Let's go to Tony in the UK. Good morning, Tyler. Do you ever listen to the TV or news, and most importantly, music? If no, why not?
I never turn on the TV and news because, like cable or anything, because I just don't have it. I don't pay for it. I stopped watching it years ago once I realized it was all programming, right? And the news is just propaganda. Whatever. We can get into all that stuff, but I stopped watching it because it wasn't serving me. Actually, I was doing a lot of research, and they actually play hypnotic frequencies through the news broadcasts that are programming people without, unbeknownst to them. And there's evidence that happens, and it's been happening since the 60s. And they were testing that stuff in think tanks. William Tompkins used to talk about it, but they were doing it even with movie soundtracks as well. Like when you go see a movie, they can play an ELF, an extremely low frequency. It's a literal hypnotic frequency that bypasses the conscious mind into the subconscious mind, and they can program trigger words, buzzwords into your subconscious, your amnesic barrier in your brain. And when you hear these words, it actually activates essentially an alternate personality in an effect, in a way. But they can, if you're watching the news, they can literally pump a frequency into your living room that is putting these trigger words in your brain, essentially in your subconscious amnesic barrier. And when you hear them, you have this knee-jerk emotional reaction to these topics or these words, and you don't even know why. And it's because you're literally being programmed when you're watching the programming. And it's not just called programming. Like, there's actual science behind this. There's people that break down movie soundtracks and find hidden frequencies beneath the soundtrack that are actually negative frequencies that are literally used for mind control. So I don't watch that shit anymore. I listen to music, but it has to be music that I feel like I resonate with, and I'm very picky about even that, because one of the things we don't talk about enough is sound pollution. We talk about all the other pollutions, but sound pollution is actually detrimental to your astral body. And if we could see the way sound actually and frequency actually affects us energetically, we would run from it in some cases, like running out of a burning building, because like the pipes, like I was interviewing I was reading a book actually talking about sound pollution, and they said that the exhaust pipes from a motorcycle are more detrimental to your energetic health, your astral body, than the pollution coming from the chemtrails, like in the air. Like the sound pollution is so much more of an issue, and that's why frequency warfare is a thing. They're weaponizing it against us, and they know how much it affects us. So I just stay away from that stuff. You got to be really careful what you get into. Once you're aware of it, you can't unsee it. So
I love it. I love it. Let's we're just waiting for some more questions to come in from our audience.
There was a question earlier that I'd like to ask, but you can
sure, go ahead if you
or answer. Somebody asked me, or asked in the chat. Let me see if I can find it. It was about it was right whenever we went to the break. It was a question I think they wanted me to answer after the break, and something about how do I know like which reality is the real reality, this one or the dream world, or something along those lines.
Here it is. Do you think that this is the illusion and that this is a real reality?
Yeah, so I'm glad they asked this question, because I had this crazy experience the other night, this dream, it felt real. And you just got to hear me out here, but it was I was in this facility. Have you ever seen the movie The Island, where it's like a cloning facility? Ewan McGregor.
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's like this whole group of people that is born and raised underground, and they don't even know about the real world because they're told it was destroyed. Whatever. I had this dream where I was in this facility. I don't know where it was, if it was on or off planet, and there was like everybody I knew was there, plus hundreds of other people, and we were all staying in line waiting to like meet with this woman who was scanning us with this device and like seeing where we were at. In a nutshell, basically what that place was we were literally stationed in this facility, all going through these training exercises to like train for this program, this private corporation. And I felt like it was off planet, and we would go incarnate on Earth as if Earth was this waiting room, and we would live out our life on Earth, and people were just being abducted, used for a mission in this program, used for this, and then memory wiped, and then put back, and they don't even know, and they just go back about their lives. And then so it was like Earth was the waiting room, and everybody I knew was also there, and it was this really weird thing. And they were like, we were in this room, and like the Earth was there, and they were able to zoom in on anybody and see their IQ, whether they had come online, like gone through this awakening, and like they were monitoring and tracking everybody's progress on Earth. And then as they would get to a certain level, as they felt like they could use them, that person would literally be abducted from the REM state of their sleep, and then be brought in to do this program, and then brought right back, and they're none the wiser to it. But there was like another version of all of us watching this happening. So we had it was like we were existing as if we were clones or something. And we were all going through these training simulations and like being put into these different tiered groups based on what we excelled at. And it was like we were all working in these workshops, and it was very much in that experience like that was the reality, and Earth was the simulation of what they called the waiting room in this experience. And we were just down here living our lives, and then just like basically running on autopilot, while people literally every day were being plucked from their sleep and used in a mission or used to do this, put right back, and were none the wiser to it. And I was like, this is like, it was so detailed. I was like, this is the craziest thing. I woke up and I told my girlfriend all about it, and she's like, you need to record that. I was like, I know it's pretty wild, but it was so real to me. And it's just a dream, so I'm not claiming that's what it is, but that question reminded me of that. And I was like, well, like, what is reality then? Like, what is this place we're actually living on, planet Earth? What is this place?
It is a scary thought. We got about 90 seconds here to go with you tonight before we got to let you go for the evening, let you get some sleep, Tyler. Just curious, what's your message? What do you want people to know?
Don't take things so seriously, and don't forget to have fun. I started getting into this, and I took it all very seriously, to the point where I wasn't laughing anymore. I wasn't having fun, because I was like, oh shit, we're in the middle of a war. We're in a spirit, like I gotta like figure this out. Like I'm here on this mission. And I took it so seriously. I got so far removed from what it meant to live the human experience and actually have fun and have a good time and smile. And I was out of balance, and I had to you got to find that fine line. You got to figure out how to do this work and not let it consume you, not let it drag you down. Don't get sucked into the rabbit holes, and you got to go have fun. And whatever that looks like for you, just find a way to tap into your inner child, and don't take it so seriously, because at the end of the day, I feel like we can kill ourselves. We're our own worst enemy, and we have to just keep it lighthearted and try to have fun and just laugh and appreciate the small things in life.
Yeah, I would agree to you, and we encourage everybody to head on over to the YouTube channel Journey to Truth on YouTube. Hit subscribe to Tyler's wonderful podcast, and you can seek maybe some answers that you are looking for as well. Tyler, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio. We really do appreciate you joining us, and good luck with your show. Coming up next on Spaced Out Radio, we're going to head to the swamp. Then Robin Haynes is going to join us for the cryptid Q&A. So if you're in our chat rooms, get your questions ready. We will be right back with hour number 3.
Thank you.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with your host, Dave Scott.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. Appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thank you. That was a blast. I really appreciate it. So, uh, it's late for me. I've never done a show this late, so thank you for that opportunity.
You're very welcome. We'll do it again.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Have a great evening, and this was great. Good night,
Take
everybody.
care.
Yep.
Take care, my friend.
Bye.
Tyler Kiwala, everybody. I'll be right back. My back is killing me. Hi, Robin.
Hey, sweetheart, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. We're having major storms over here, so internet's going in and out. So if I lose you, I did not just leave.
Okay.
Just wanted to let you know ahead of time. I think we'll be okay, but just in case. I'm loving the jersey.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how is the hockey battle going?
Good. We won tonight.
Good.
One more away from the championship final.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Stu F. and Gerson, how you doing? All right. Big thank you tonight to Kitty Caddywhack, Mike ×2, Mel, Eternity, Pam, Candace, and Grant for the super chats. Greatly appreciate the love. And bring your questions for Robin. You can put them in capital letters here, and I will get them to her. Here we go. Here is hour number 3 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you very much for tuning us on in wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone tuning us in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on every major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Defletic. Defletic is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's head to the swamp.
Hello and welcome to Spaced Out Radio's Swamp. I'm Swamp Dweller, and tonight I'm going to take you on a mystic journey of the unknown, sharing tales of monsters, legends, and nightmares. Welcome to the Spaced Out Radio Swamp. When I was 8, maybe even 7, I had a disturbing encounter with some creature or entity. I lived in the Appalachian mountain range of Pennsylvania. It was November, around when daylight saving time occurred. I remember it was supposed to be a school day, but since the snow was so heavy, the buses were not able to drive out in the morning, so school was canceled for a snow day. I was so excited to spend the rest of the day outside in the snow. We had an acre of property, going quite far back into the woods. I was walking deep into the forest to a small frozen pond past my property line. Suddenly, the woods were dead silent. No birds, no wildlife scurrying around, absolutely nothing. I remember thinking it was strange, but kept walking. I really wanted to make it to the pond. I should have turned right then and there, but I was just a naive little kid. After I reached the pond, everything was still completely silent, and the hairs on the back of my neck felt like they were rising. I started to feel frightened, but I didn't exactly know why. I felt like something bad was going to happen to me if I didn't leave at that exact moment, so I decided to run back home. As I arrived back at my yard, I realized it was so late. The sun was setting. My mom was running outside asking where I was literally all day. And to never disappear ever like that again. Nothing of this ever made sense to me. I had only been outside for about 20 minutes. I left my house with my snow gear on at around 10 a.m., right after getting the snow day call. It was almost 8 p.m., meaning I had been gone for around 10 hours. I have no idea how I had been gone for such a long amount of time. I remember only being out there for just a few minutes. I don't know if this was some sort of creature encounter. I've heard of a lot of lost time being attributed to being hypnotized or just being in the presence of these skinwalkers or wendigo type creatures. Has anyone else ever had this happen to them? Was it some type of creature? I didn't see anything while there at all. I don't think I lost track of time, and I definitely didn't fall and hit my head or anything. What do you think happened? please let me know in the comments below.
Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another crazy, messy story. Oh, his stories are spooky. If you want more just like that, head on over to his YouTube channel, Swamp Dweller. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and you get thousands of them just like that. He's ready for you. Let's go to Robin. The lovely and talented Robin Haynes returns for the cryptid Q&A. And Robin, it is always a pleasure to have you on Spaced Out Radio. How are you?
I am good. Glad to be here. Always love it.
We should tell people that you're having very stormy weather where you are. The
Yeah.
internet has been cutting in and out. So if we all of a sudden lose Robin, she is going to try and get back on. But,
Yes.
let's hope it doesn't happen and we get her for the full show. And that would be absolutely wonderful. It's so good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you too. Hope everybody's doing well. We've got a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. So just an FYI for everybody. If you're feeling really emotional, if you feel really out of whack, join the group. Everybody that I've talked to is in the same boat. Don't think it's specific to you. We have got everything from new moons to, solar burst and energy burst and frequency burst right now. So everybody's kind of all over the map. So you guys be kind to yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't take everything too seriously because it's just kind of going across the board right now. Okay. Our bodies are doing a lot of changes with this shift and trying to catch up. We've talked about this before. Bump up water, bump up protein. If your body is wanting foods that you don't normally eat, be really kind to yourself and just kind of try to get through the emotional roller coaster. It's not going to affect everybody, but there seems to be more people than not that it is affecting. And we're just kind of all over the map. So, it's a pain. It's not a pleasant thing, but try to be kind to yourself and each other and just ride it through. It's going to get better. Our bodies have got to adjust to all these changes. And while we've got all these changes going on, we also have a lot of different energy bursts that are going. So just try to be kind to each other and to yourself.
Love the message. Love the message. We bring you in to talk monsters. And, we posted our first video from Flight 21 on our Spaced Out Radio YouTube channel. And we encourage our listeners in Radioland to go over there and check it on out. Don't forget to hit subscribe. That's my shameless plug. We caught some EVPs.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it sounds like a young boy or girl. And the first EVP we hear it says it says captain. And then it goes into a bunch of jumbled words that we can't just quite make out. Mm-hmm. And then from there, the second EVP has Tim kind of messing around with the camera, and he kind of just drops the camera. Not very far, but you hear, uh-oh, and then some giggling right afterwards. Now, one of the things we do know is that on the fateful day of that plane crash, there were children on board. There's about 2 infants and 4 children on board.
Oh, wow.
So we don't know if it's from them or some other spirit from the area. And, I'm kind of at a crossroads right now because I don't want to make this investigation about the crash site. It's about, to me, the crash site is the cause of the high strangeness there. Mm-hmm. And I want to know about the effects that are happening around there. But I can't deny the fact that there is voices on there. And we're heading back this weekend in order to try and see what else we get. Hopefully it will be just as amazing as the last time. What's your thoughts on that? Just your intuition.
Well, I think, when we are in a 3D spectrum, we miss so much. Okay. Visually, we just miss a ton, an absolute ton. That's why when you get your frequency up and you get more in the 4th and 5th dimension, you get to see through what I call the paranormal spectrum. Okay. So your vision changes and you get to see things that you normally would not see just in the 3D. But it also affects the hearing and what we can hear and what we can't. That's why when we have the devices that pick it up, and this was a very long time ago, we had just a recorder. You can go to Walmart and spend under $20 and just get a voice recorder and just leave it on, go to bed, or leave it on while you're at work during the day, and it picks up from that other dimension. It picks up the voices. We had a little girl that would sit there and talk about one of our cats. And I was eating dinner one night and it was very quiet in the house and we had the recorder. We had a researcher that had come over, excuse me, by the name of Joe Stewart. And he was just a wonderful person. And he had it going and we were very quiet. We're all eating dinner and he played it back. And this little girl was apparently standing next to me and calling me mommy and telling me about my cat and that she'd like to pet the cat. So when we get out of that 3rd dimension, which really holds us down, it's just a purely physical dimension, no abilities, no higher frequency, and it is so limiting to us as far as visually and audibly what we hear. So when you get out of that and you start using these recording devices, it's unbelievable what you can pick up. And it's unbelievable because you can find out what actually went on. And it's all completely legit. I went to a conference with Igor Borstov and Janice Carter, and we had one going, and there was a little girl that was on there talking to us through they call it the spirit box, but it was just an audible recording. And it's incredible. Like, I think we need to take it very seriously because all it is we're able to hear through a different spectrum because we're now out of that physical that holds us down in the 3D and we're getting it through the higher frequencies.
Why do you think that certain spirits hang out and collect with other aspects of the phenomena in one location?
Well, it used to be the standard answer everybody would say is, oh, they have unfinished business. I don't believe that. I mean, a lot of them, and I do a lot of consultations of speaking to the spirits for people. If somebody's passed and they're, one of their family members want to communicate with them or whatever, and for various reasons. I do a lot of sessions with people on that. And I don't find that they're there because they have unfinished business. They just still feel like they're tied here. They don't want to leave their loved ones. I mean, there's a million reasons why they will stick around. And I also don't believe, and a lot of people do, and that's fine, that once they cross over, they're just gone. Because I know some that have crossed over and actually come back and forth because they still feel like they're tied, whether it's an emotional tie, whether they're attached to something here, whether it's a matter of they're not happy about the way their death went. There could be a million reasons that keep them here. It's not just unfinished business. I mean, I have people that I work with on a regular basis that their loved ones just aren't going anywhere. They're waiting for them. I have a very good friend of mine that her late husband, he's been passed for, oh my gosh, I want to say 7 years ago. And he's still hanging around. And they get stronger. As they learn how to pull energy, they get stronger. And she actually had, like, about a week and a half ago, she actually had where he had manifested to a kind of a physical sighting of him. That about gave her a stroke, but when she's talking about
No kidding.
I mean, but they do. They learn how to pull that energy, and they just don't want to go. They're not ready to leave their loved ones, but I don't believe it's just unfinished business. I don't believe that at all. My grandmother passed away like 15 years ago, and she crossed over right away. Very rarely do I get contact from her, and I was the closest person on this planet to her. But every once in a while, something will happen. But they have to pull the energy to be able to do it. It's not something that they all can do. It's not something they automatically know how to do.
Who makes the choice on the crossover? The spirit?
They do. Yeah, they do. They do. My understanding from the ones that I've talked to is when they go to first pass, they go through this kind of almost a transformation, if you want to call it that, where they reevaluate everything that went on in their life. And I get calls all the time from people to help me talk to their loved ones that have passed. And what people don't realize is what was important to them when they were alive is not necessarily what is important to them as they've passed. They go through this transition, and it's almost like going through a file of facts in their spirit or in their mind of everything that's gone on in their life. And what is important to them in death is not necessarily what was in life. They almost like reevaluate everything, and their perspective change. There's a lot of things that can stay the same, but there's also a lot that changes. And people are, at first, I'm just going to tell them what they say. There's nothing else I can do. I'm not going to make it up. I'm going to tell them what I'm told. And they're like, well, that kind of makes sense, but they didn't care anything about that before. Well, now they do. They've looked at things in their life. They've looked at them differently, not just with regret, but also, with hope, and the things that they just didn't care about before become a big deal to them. But they are in control as if they're coming or going.
That is a big one on the control aspect. So in this area where we seem to have a lot of different phenomena, which with the Sasquatch, maybe other forest dwellers that we haven't seen yet, other cryptids we haven't seen yet. We look at the UFOs, the dogmen that might come by. I hope they don't, by goodness. The ghosts, the spirits. When they all congregate in one area, is it because there is trauma in that area, like in this case due to the crash site, or is it because they just seem to pick up on each other's energies?
Actually, it's a little bit of both. I'm not going to say that the trauma doesn't draw them in, because it can. When you have trauma, you have high frequencies, you have high energies, whether that energy is fear, love, panic, whatever, that frequency is elevated. They can come in because they can feel the sorrow. They can come in, they feel the pain. They can come in and feel the joy, not that it's a joyful thing when there's, a crash site, but they come in for a lot of reasons. And all of these things, while separate when they're in this plane, they also hang out near each other, and they feed off that energy. Because at the end of the day, energy is what makes everything happen. Energy and frequency, the good, the bad, the ugly, that's what makes it all work. And that's why you find, whether it's at a crash site where there's a lot of spirits that are there, or whether you're just out in the woods and you have cryptids out there, elementals, dimensionals, ETs, whatever, all of these things exist because they are high frequency. They are high frequency beings, whether they are something that is past or whether they are something that's there. And all high frequency beings tend to be in a vicinity with each other. But yeah, when it comes to a crash site like that, they can gather for so many different reasons. Like, the sadness that is there is overwhelming. So like, let's say it's a Sasquatch and it's out in that area and there's this crash site and there's all this sorrow and pain. They're going to go there because they're going to want to know why. They're going to sense that energy. Is that something that's a threat to them? Is that something that's a threat to their way of life? If it's just sorrow and pain, they're going to come to see if there's, what's going on. Why is it sad? Why is there pain there? It's going to draw them in like a magnet. It really will. And not necessarily bad things are going to come in, but things are going to come in because they're going to feel that change in the energies and the frequencies. Because at the end of the day, no matter how you slice it, it all comes down to energy and frequency.
I like that thought. As we got about 4 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour, the cryptid Q&A with Robin Haynes continuing right now as we speak. Let's take a quick audience question here from you. Let's go to Mike here, who is asking, Robin, long story short, a woman was at a music festival and was saved by a Bigfoot from 3 guys who were trying to do things to her. What is the connection between human and ape that we share with Bigfoot?
Well, the mitochondrial side has 3% human in it. So even though they may not be our type of human, they are a form of a human. We do have a genetic link to them, and they do have human in them. They are a human hybrid. It's a fact, even when it's hard for everybody to understand, to accept that, but they are. So we have that genetic link to them, just like you would any other kind of human, whether you're in the United States, whether you are in Guam, it doesn't matter. You still have that human link to you. And that's part of it. It draws them to it. And again, they're going to be drawn anyway out of, Sasquatch is a very compassionate being, and they feel the energies and the frequencies.
Have you heard stories of, I've heard stories of Sasquatch rescuing people from different animals.
Absolutely.
Whether it's mountain lions or bears.
Yeah.
Does that happen more frequently than we think?
Absolutely. Even when we aren't aware that they're doing it, they do. Like if you're out in the woods and you're not familiar with Sasquatch and you're out there, it doesn't mean that that's not going to happen. You may not be aware that it's happened, but it does. And it happens a lot. They tend to be really good in the whole search and rescue situation.
Can you give us a 2-minute example?
Yeah, there was in, I think it was Virginia, there was a little boy that got lost. This was several years ago, and they couldn't find him. They looked everywhere, couldn't find him. And when he was returned, he was just deposited up on somebody's door. And he talked about this big giant bear that carried him all over the place and kept him safe and kept him warm at night and gave him pieces of meat to eat. That was not a bear. That was a Sasquatch. These are very compassionate beings, when we have not altered their way of thinking. Not that there isn't bad ones, but we alter a lot of the way they're thinking because we're so cruel and we try to kill what we don't understand. But when it comes to a child, when it comes to innocence like that, more often than not, the compassion is there. They are high frequency. You get that high frequency. The highest frequency you get is love, and that comes from the heart. And so that does raise your frequency, and they are extremely high frequency. And so they do. They are very good in the search and rescue. I personally, they've saved my life 6 times from various things. I went right off a cliff one time, and I'm like dangling off this cliff. And while it wasn't a huge drop down, it was a drop down onto jagged rocks. And they were the ones that got me off of this situation. I'm like hanging off this branch. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was not my finest moment. But they are the reason that I didn't get hurt. Like 1 minute I'm off this branch, the next thing I know, I've been lifted up and I'm on the edge of this hill and I'm on this rock incline that was above me, that there's no way I could even get my legs to pull myself up on. It was incredible. But they are very compassionate. And, like with that child, they're going to protect that child. They're going to help them. If they see a child by themselves, that's a child without a clan. Do we have some that have kidnapped children? Yes, that is a fact. It does happen. But I want to point out that our people also have, child abductors and pedophiles. But more often than not, when they take a child, if they see him alone.
Hold that thought. We'll be back with a cryptid Q&A right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
This is Spaced Out Radio and your host, Dave Scott.
All right. There we go.
Yeah, they If they see a child alone, to them, that's a child without a clan. And they are so maternal. Whether it's the males or the females, they are all about the kids. And they're highly protective, more so than our people are. But, like we let our kids go outside to play, and we may be in the house and we know they're on the property, so they're fine. They don't look at it that way. They look at that child is alone. And in their culture, that is unacceptable. They always have watchers that are going to watch over these kids no matter what. So if we have one of our kids are outside playing by themselves, they think it's a child without a clan. Not that there isn't some that would take a child anyway, but a lot of times that's just the way they view it. And they don't think they are hurting, they think they're helping. And that's been proven time and time again. It's not all for good reasons, but a lot of it actually is. But they do protect people. I mean, they'll run predators off from coming up on us. Like, I don't think we really realize the extent that they really do help in some way. The good ones, not the bad ones, but the good ones. The bad ones are awful. The bad ones are lethal. They really are, but so are our people that are bad. So it's kind of like the same thing. But they do try to be helpful. I get a lot of people that are in a panic if they see a Sasquatch and it's like waving its arms. Yet when our people do it in the military, it means surrender. Have a Sasquatch do it and people are terrified. But they could be trying to warn you, don't go down this path. There could be a cougar, there could be a bear, there could be anything. And there has been a lot of cases where they have run predators off to keep them away from our humans.
We actually, 3 minutes after we left Flight 21, we actually had a cougar come up on a trail about 100 feet from us. That was
dangerous.
Intimidating.
Oh, yeah. That would be terrifying. When I lived in Michigan, we had 10 acres there, and I would walk the same path every day because the Sasquatch liked that predictability and knowing where I was. And they would come out and they would walk the path with me. And if they were cloaked in this wintertime, I would see their footprints being made next to me. Or, I would hear them walking very close. Sometimes I would physically see them, but not all the time. And I was absolutely stunned to find I went out there one day, and one day there was cougar tracks that were following my path. And then I had John Castle, who's a friend of mine and a researcher. He came out and he does wildlife as far as, identification and removal and that kind of thing. He found bear tracks back there. And I'm like, I have 10 acres. That's all I have. It wasn't like it was this huge property. I was out there all the time. And I'm thinking everything I know back there is, everything's coming back and forth through there. The guy behind me had a cattle farm, and his daughter called me and said, we just saw this huge cougar go over the fence and on your property. And I'm thinking, I let my kids play out there all the time. This is not really a suburb area. It's, out in the woods, but everybody had like 10-acre lots. So, it's not like it's out in the middle of nowhere. Like where I'm at now, it's more remote. But we've got Sasquatch that have a cougar that come through here all the time. There's 3 of them, and they bring a cougar everywhere they go. This cougar follows. Out in Texas, one of the groups that I work with, one of them has a pet bobcat. But it is amazing that they will protect you. Not in all cases, everybody's an individual, but there's a lot of cases that they do. They really do.
All right, we got about a minute to go here before we're coming back.
There is a story, and I wish I knew how to find it. It was on YouTube. It was absolutely beautiful, about a truck driver that unfortunately actually hit a Sasquatch. It was not intentional. And he went up to it as it was laying on the ground, and it wanted his crucifix. And he took it off. It kept pointing to it. He took it off and gave it to it. And its mate was there, and the mate came up and never tried to hurt this truck driver or anything. And he gave it his cross, and it literally held the cross in its hands.
Oh, wow. Hold on right there, Robin. Big thank you to Mel, Mike times 2, Grant, Candace, Pam, Eternity, and Kitty for the super chats. We greatly appreciate your love. And here we go in about 6 seconds. Oh, maybe 6 seconds now. I mistimed it. All right, here we go in the final half hour of Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Robin Haynes is tuning in with us for the cryptid Q&A. She comes in each and every week. Reminder to all of you that if you've missed most of this show or others, our archives are always free on YouTube or any major podcast network. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on X at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon in the Space Travelers Club. Robin Haynes is here, hanging out with us as we are literally talking questions from our audience about anything to do with monsters. You ready for more, Robin?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to Derek here. Robin, when Bigfoot goes rogue in their clans and do something bad, how do they get punished?
They actually are more of a corporal punishment type people. They really are. There's anything from physical punishment to they'll ostracize them, removal of the clan. I've had some over the years that I know where they literally, like we have jails. They don't have a jail, but they had some that they actually put in a cave, and that's where they were not allowed to leave this cave. They almost like they were held prisoner there. A lot of times they're removed from the clan. They are more physical in their punishments. They are more of a uncivilized type of people than we are in some cases, not all. In some of them are very civilized, but a lot of them aren't. So it's more of a physical punishment, whether it's be hit, beat up, tossed around, whatever. They tend to be more physical in nature with that. Certain ones will be taken to the elders to decide on punishment. There's been times that, myself and some other people that I've worked with before have had to go to the council, because there were problems with certain ones. And they will deal with them. But they are more of a physical punishment type of people. Or, like I said, they will remove them from the clan. They will be banished. They will not be allowed back. They are not allowed in. We had one years ago, we ran into, and this is the goofiest thing. I know how stupid this sounds, guys, but this one kept peeing inside the cave. This turned into this big deal about he would not stop peeing in the cave. And he literally got booted from the clan because he wouldn't quit peeing in the cave. And when it first happened, there was myself and several other people that were talking to that particular individual. And we thought it was the funniest thing ever. We were cracking up because we really couldn't believe it was like a thing. But it was. And he was never allowed back in that clan. He stayed in contact with us for years, but he was never allowed back. So, anything from ostracizing them to the clan to physical punishment. Yeah, they can really be more of the corporal punishment type of people.
All right, let's move on. Let's go to Tim here. How does fear play a role when you interact with the phenomena?
I think it's different for everybody. I really do. We fear what we don't understand or what we don't know. So I think there's that little bit of basis. I'm like everybody else. I can get scared. You should have a healthy amount of fear. These are beings that can do severe damage, just like we can with them. We're more fragile than they are, for sure. But I think it's normal to have a healthy fear base. You should be a little bit afraid of something that can do the amount of damage that they can, just like they have a certain amount of fear for us because, we bring in the bad men with the guns. But I think it's normal. I think if you have anybody that tells you that they have absolutely no fear of these kind of situations and these kind of beings, they're either lying out their rear or there's something mentally imbalanced about them. Because when you think that you are so superior that none of these things can take you down, you need to get out of this field. I mean, you don't have to be terrified all the time, but you should have a certain amount of knowledge that you can get hurt in this. And it's okay to have a certain amount of fear. Don't let the fear control you, but listen to it. Fear is a very normal emotion. It's a very normal energy. And the higher your frequency is, the deeper your emotions. So if you're a higher frequency person, as we go into the fourth and fifth dimension, we are, and with this energy shift and frequency shift, you become a higher frequency. You love deeper, you hate deeper, you have more fear. That's a deeper based fear. All your emotions are stronger. That's why when it comes to the cryptids or the ETs, dimensionals, elementals, whichever one, we find that the range of emotion is much more wild. And when I say wild, I mean just much more intense. Okay? They love deeper. They hate deeper. Their anger is off the charts when they get mad. It's because they are a higher frequency. And as our frequencies change, ours will as well. But I think it's very healthy to have a low base amount of fear. Don't let it control you. But at least that way you can be acutely aware of the fact that you are working with something that could do damage to you.
That makes a lot of sense. And Tim is actually going to be our guest tomorrow night on the show.
Awesome.
And he, without giving away tomorrow night's show, because I think it's an important show for him and his healing, he was very traumatically affected by what happened at Flight 21 in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And he is still not over it. And in fact, he'll get into his story more tomorrow night about that. I mean, the phenomena, when you believe like Tim did, with this just being fully nuts and bolts, okay, flesh and blood for Bigfoot, nuts and bolts for UFOs,
yeah.
And all of a sudden, strange things that don't follow or fall into the pattern of what you believe happened right in front of you, it could be life-altering. And it was for him.
Absolutely. But when you are in that physical mental state, okay, where that's where your mind's at, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but when you are in that third dimensional state, which is the nuts and bolts and the physical, and you are faced with seeing things as they actually are, which is in a higher dimension, more of a paranormal spectrum, it is a huge blow. It shakes you down to your core. Everything that you ever believed in your life has now changed in some way or another, and it makes it very difficult to cope. I work with people all the time that have that kind of trauma and have a hard time bridging that gap of acceptance, if you will. And it's not easy. It really isn't easy because we spend our life being told that things are a certain way by the powers that be and are all within this little box that we believe our world is. And our world was never in that box. That's what we were taught to believe. That's what we believed because it was a learned thing from the time we were very young. This is the reality. This is the box. This is the flesh and blood. This is the nuts and bolts. And when something like that happens, it not only questions your sanity, it questions your faith, it questions everything that you've ever known because it changes everything. It's no longer the same. The world that you believe existed, you're now finding out never did. And it's very hard. I work with people every day on this stuff, and it is very difficult. You've changed your entire belief system, whether you realize it or not, because what you believed was never was to begin with. And it's almost like taking your entire life and saying, okay, it wasn't accurate. I've got to rethink and relearn every single thing that I ever held near and dear. And it's traumatizing. And it really is. And for some people, it's harder than others. You know, it just depends on your upbringing. It depends on what you've experienced in your life. But when you're confronted face to face with it, that is a huge shift. And it's not an easy one to do. Even if you are trying to and believe that there's other things that are possible, it is very difficult.
Let's move on to another question, because I do want to keep Tim's story a little bit suspect until tomorrow night.
Yes.
When we have him on the show. Let's go to Earth Goat Trees. Robin, do you consider high frequency to be the same as high intensity?
It's a good question. I don't think so. I mean, the high intensity is a little bit different. Frequency, you know, even if you go back to quantum physics, frequency is that vibration. It is what the basis of us are. And intensity, in my mind, whether this is accurate or not, it can raise, your frequency can raise, but intensity can be like you're fine 1 minute and then all of a sudden you just get this intense feeling and it's like a burst. Your frequency, and I could be wrong on that, but that's just my own thinking on it. Your frequency and your consciousness is what you are. Okay, everything is a frequency. I don't care if it's a Kleenex. Everything has an energy signature. Everything has a frequency, whether it's low or high. Your frequency, as you evolve, as you progress with your life, it increases. As your mind opens up, as you start realizing that you are outside of that box, your frequency goes up. Highest frequency there is love. You get to that place through your heart. So your heart frequency is always going to be the highest. You know, frequency is a type of a vibration, a vibrational pull. We all have a basis of frequency. And then as different things happen in our life, it can increase, it can decrease, but we always have that basis of it, where the intensity, I think, can be emotionally based. You know, like if you're really happy, maybe it's just like that burst where your frequency is there at all times. Everything has a frequency. It is. We have days that obviously frequency is higher due to happiness or due to sorrow, but I don't think they're quite the same. I think depending on your interpretation of it and how you look at it would actually tell you, you know, if it is the same or not. In my opinion, for the way I look at things, no, it's not the same.
All right, let's go to Joe. Are all of them, being Sasquatch, compassionate?
No. Much like our own people, some are more so than others. Because of the higher frequency, they tend to be compassionate, but not all of them. I mean, I always want to be clear with everybody that there is just as many, I think there's more good than bad in them, and the good ones are extremely compassionate, yes. But there's bad ones. Just like we have good people and bad people, it's the same thing with any of the cryptids, any of the paranormal beings. So no, they are not all compassionate. They are a high compassionate people as a whole. Again, it's because of the high frequency that they are. But the aggressive ones, absolutely not. No, there's no compassion there. Just like, you know, when we have murderers and rapists and, you know, like Jeffrey Dahmer and all these, you know, these crazy people that do all these horrible, horrible things against our people and other people and animals and things. They are not compassionate at all. And unfortunately, with the Sasquatch and the cryptid people, it's the same way. It depends on the individual, but I do find that there's more good ones than bad, and the ones that are good are extremely compassionate, yes.
See, I look at it that I think it depends on the territory.
Yeah.
The West Coast Sasquatch, say between Northern California where Joe lives, who's asking the question, and up here to British Columbia, I think they seem to be a little bit more passive, a little bit more curious, aloof, depending on the area. Okay, for the most part. Now, I'm not saying there aren't bad clans or anything. You know, I'm suspect of the clan at Flight 21. But I also know that they also seem to be more aggressive in the South. Like the Florida swamp ape and the booger and all of these cryptids. Look at the Boggy Creek monster. That one wasn't very polite.
No, and you know, it has to do Two, they're all individuals, just like we're all individuals. So are they. You're not going to find any two alike. And even in the worst of areas, you're going to find a group that might be very kind. You know, I mean, they are all individuals, but you know, it's just like we have areas like, I don't even know what the island is, but that people won't go there because of the tribes that live there. You can't even get near the island because even trying to get to that island, you know, they're coming out on the beach and trying to kill you. So as far as location based, you know, if that's where, look at Land Between the Lakes, not a lot of compassion there. But even with the land, with the LBL, there are pockets that are good. Now, Michigan, I have not had a problem with real aggressive, problematic ones in Michigan, but there are pockets of them. Pigeon has a few areas that are not the nicest. Gladwin has a lot of really good ones, but there is a pocket of them that run through there that are highly aggressive. You know, it just comes down to the individuals and where they're at. And I do think that to some degree, some of the locations have different ones that are more aggressive. You get down to the swamp apes, they are more uncivilized. In my own opinion, if we were to do DNA testing on them, I think we would find less human in them. But they don't like us. They don't want to be near us. They are much more uncivilized. They act more wild. Some of them act like complete lunatics. You know, that's why they hide out in the swamps and they want to be away from us. You can go to certain mountain ranges and, you know, have really good communication with some. But as you go higher up that mountain, they get more wild and they get more aggressive. Alaska's a perfect example of that. There's parts in Alaska that you go in there with them, you're not coming out. And then you can go to other areas and they're lovely. You know, it depends on why, you know, do they want contact with us? Have they been in a situation where we've done nothing but try to hunt them down? But the bad ones tend to want to get away from us and not get too close. But the ones that are a higher frequency and are the kinder ones are excessively compassionate, more so than our people.
4 minutes, 2 questions. Are there accounts of people encountering the ghost of a Bigfoot? Does that happen?
I'm not going to say that it's a ghost. What they can do is they can go from physical form to what they call spirit form. They do that by raising their vibration. And they literally look like a ghost. You'll see the outline of them. I have a picture of one, and you can see the entire outline of this female. She's carrying a baby. You can see the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and then you can look right through her body because they go in spirit form. A lot of people, and I know this sounds insane, guys, but a lot of people, myself included, have literally watched them walk through the wall of a house and walk into it because they go from physical form into spirit form. It's absolutely crazy. Can you talk to the ghost of a Sasquatch? Yes. Have I? Yes. Not a lot. Generally, you know, of course, they have a lot longer lifespan. You know, some of them are 800-900 years old. Typically, they go anywhere from, I want to say, 300 to 400 years old, maybe 5. If they stay in flesh and blood and they don't use the paranormal abilities, they don't get in the portals, they don't do the higher vibrational things, then they tend to have more of a lifespan like we do if they stay in that flesh mode, because when they are going through the portals and they're in that higher frequency, it kills off diseases, health issues, you know, they're able to do healing on themselves, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason that you could not. I don't think it's quite as common, but you absolutely could. But they can go into spirit form and back into flesh and blood as they transfer back and forth.
One more question for you. We got 2 minutes to go. Paramarv is asking, the David Paulides Missing 411 Project films sometimes imply that Bigfoot or UFOs may play a factor in some of the disappearance of these hikers or hunters. What's your thoughts on this?
They actually do. Not as often as you would think. Like, I think people seem to think that just because there's a disappearance, that's the normal thing to think it's a Sasquatch or a dogman. The reality of it is there's a lot worse things out there in the woods and in our world that can do more damage than they can. Does it happen? Actually, and unfortunately, yes, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. But it, again, situations, we have good Sasquatch, we have bad ones, same thing with the dogmen. But, children that are off on their own, they think are without a clan, they will grab them in a red hot minute. If they have a female that's lost a child and is grieving and sees a child, they're going to grab it and bring it into that clan. It's not like every child is not safe, but it can be problematic. It really can. If they see them out playing by themselves, unfortunately, my kids grew up around the Sasquatch. They were always around the yard or in the woods or whatever. We had basic rules. Nobody is out in the woods by themselves. Once it was very apparent that they could imitate the voices and they could imitate them to perfection, the house rule was, if you hear me calling you and I tell you I'm out in the woods, I don't care if I tell you I'm dying. If you don't physically see me, you do not go. Absolutely do not go, because they can imitate anybody's voice. And my ex-husband thought it was me out there talking to him one day, and I was never even out of the house. And so we implemented that. They never tried to get my kids out in the woods alone. They never, called them to come out there. But that was a rule that was absolutely in stone at my house. If somebody calls you out into the woods and you do not see that human, you don't go. You're not going to get grounded. You're not going to get in trouble. But we implemented that just as a safety factor. We never had any problems. They would play with my grandchildren. My 5-year-old granddaughter, they would stand in the tree line and they would roll a rock to her. And she would laugh and she'd take the rock and she'd roll it back. And they would roll it back and forth. Or they would toss the soccer ball out of the woods at my daughter.
Robin, thank you very much. As we say goodnight to Robin Haynes and hello to Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Rocking in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. Rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on X, hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night, but soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night, everybody. All right. Good job, Robin.
Thank you. I can't wait to see the show tomorrow night. And if there's anything I can do to help him, please don't hesitate to call me, Dave.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sure it's got to be very difficult for him.
Oh, it has been.
I mean, that's a big shift to have to accept.
Right.
But I will let you go, my dear friend. I love you guys.
All right, you take care, my lady. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.
You too.
Robin Haynes, everybody. We love her around here. Hi, Jessica Davenport. How are you? Linda. How you doing? So get ready to edit. Mm-hmm. All right. Almost done there. All right, that should do it. That should do it. There we go. Mm-hmm. Let's do the edit thing. Not sleeping. No, I don't do that anymore. Okay, let's boost this. All right, there we go. And let's get this. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Get that over there. Get that over there. Now we can edit. Yay me! Yay me! All right. Any questions? Ask away while I edit. Six, 9, 16.
Yeah, so it was more or less like this. Once I started learning about this stuff and listening to podcasts and stuff, and understanding that there were others out there going through the same thing, I became hooked. I was like, oh, like there's other people going through this stuff, and I didn't have anyone to talk to, right? So the internet becomes your best friend, and the people in the chat, and everybody in the comment section, like you start communicating with these complete strangers, but they're experiencing something similar, so you're relating. And that led me to a conference. I bought tickets to a conference, and I went with my dad, and we didn't know a single soul that was going to be there. I just had a feeling. I wish I stayed in Texas. I told my dad, I was like, I think this is going to be a life-changing experience if we go. And he's like, I'll leave it up to you. So we bought 2 tickets and went to Loveland, Colorado in 2018 for a UFO conference, a disclosure conference, and that's why I ended up meeting my co-host. And we met there and realized we both lived in the same hometown. And we got back home a couple weeks later. We met up for lunch, and he just kind of threw out the idea for starting a podcast. It sounded okay to me, and it really was just going to be us just kind of, just shooting the shit. It's going to be us just, really it was just us just kind of, just shooting the shit. Shit. Just shooting the. Sorry, just
That's a good edit. Good job, Dave. Volume 2 with Tim James and myself will be filmed on Saturday. So hopefully we'll have it up by next week sometime. Oob to you. No idea, Jessica. No idea. Uh, um, when I encountered it with Samantha, the only thing that happened was it was telepathically communicating with her. Flirt away, Lavira. Flirt away. If we're worried about flirting in our chat room, we got bigger issues, man. What am I missing in the chat room? Hold on, I gotta go back a minute here. Where are we? SOR4 needs to be edited. Hold on before we do that. SOR4 52. Cancel that. So SOR is 35, 45, 55, 53, 52.
literally abducted from the REM state of their sleep, and then be brought into through this program, and then brought right back, and then none the wiser to it. But there was like another version of all of us watching this happen. So we had like, it was like we were existing as if we were clones or something, and we were all going through these training simulations and like being put into these different tiered groups based on what we excelled at. And it was like we were all working in these workshops, and it was very much in that experience like that was the reality, and Earth was the simulation of what they called the waiting room in this experience. And we were just down here living our lives, and then just like basically running on autopilot, while people literally every day were being plucked from their sleep and used in a mission or used to do this, put right back, and they were none the wiser to it. And I was like, this is like, it was so detailed. I was like, this is the craziest thing. I woke up and I told my girlfriend all about it, and she's like, you need to record that. I was like, I know it's pretty wild, but it was so real to me. And it's just a dream, so I'm not claiming that's what it is, but that question reminded me of that. And I was like, well, like, what is reality though? Like, what is this place we're actually living on planet Earth? What is this place?
It is a scary thought. We got about 90 seconds here to go with you tonight before we got to let you go for the evening, let you get some sleep, Tyler. Just curious, what's your message? What do you want people to know?
Don't take things so seriously, and don't forget to have fun. I started getting into this, and I took it all very seriously, to the point where I wasn't laughing anymore. I wasn't having fun because I was like, oh shit, we're in the middle of a war. We're in a spirit, like, it all very seriously. To the point where I wasn't laughing anymore. I wasn't having fun because I was like, oh shit, we're in the middle of a war. Because I was like, oh shit, we're in the middle. Shit. Because I was like, oh, we're in the middle of a war. We're in a spirit. Like, I gotta like figure this out. Like,
Tired. I'm tired. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning us in tonight on the big show. Thank you to Mike ×2, Mel, Kitty, Eternity, Pam, Candace, and Grant for the great super chats. Greatly appreciate your love and support. Tomorrow night on the show, Tim Senor will join us. We're going to talk about the cause and effect of the phenomena. Now, as you know, Tim was our UFO reporter around here, and things got busy for him, and he had to leave, and eventually we had Courtney and then Tim James. But there's some reasoning behind that. See, the phenomena can screw a person up. That's what we're going to talk about tomorrow night. Thank you, everybody. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe, ring that bell, and follow us on all social media platforms. You have a great night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.